And welcome back to another special edition of the Michael Decon program. My name is Michael, and I am the Echoes of the Fallen, straight out of the gutters from Hell Central, California. I'm proud to be here. First time listeners out there, thanks for finding this program. We hope you stick around. This is a very different kind of show, a place where we don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. We do admire you for your curiosity. Joining me tonight is the return of Mr. John Kelly. And of course, he is a veteran here of the program. CBS Radio Experience, #1 rated U.S. television, his work exploring consciousness, communications, and the paranormal and UFO phenomena. John Kelly is an international clinician and a world-famous speech analyst. He's been here before, and he's made his return. Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again, on a night like this. What's up, boys and girls? Welcome back for another exciting episode of the Michael Decon program. Can you believe it? We're back again. I was just on with Mr. John Hogue last night. I hope you enjoyed that. Those of you who did, listen, by the way, and if you haven't, please go back and listen. Now, without further ado, let's get down to brass taxes and bring in Mr. John Kelly. John, thank you for being here this evening, all the way from Canada.
That's right, Vancouver, British Columbia. Great to be with you, Michael. Thank you.
Representing from the Great White North. Thank you so much for returning, John. It's always an honor and pleasure to have you on the program.
Well, I thought, it's end of year, time for a wrap-up special. Who better to talk to about that than Michael Decon?
You know what? I really appreciate those kind words. And John, you always do a fantastic job when I bring you on the program. You actually brought your own talking points here tonight, which I was incredibly impressed by. Really, you are you are professional, no doubt.
Just trying to hold it down,
Yes.
Hold on my corner of the universe up here.
Right, and of course you have drawn assignment this evening, and I'm so glad you're here. We will be breaking down what I like to refer to as the most chaotic year in history.
Wow.
Do you agree with that?
In my history, certainly.
It's been nuts, right?
Yeah, it's been over the top, and I think a lot of the year, creative people have been creating solutions just to manage, basic infrastructure problems. A lot of creative projects weren't possible this year or to really do when we were just trying to struggle to reorganize and regroup to confront the crisis that's been facing us.
Right. Earlier in the program, I said you were experienced in television and radio. You used to work for CBS. Can we talk a little bit about your background just to drive it home for the newer listeners out there?
True. I got involved in talk radio 20 years ago as a correspondent, and I was producing intelligence assessments of U.S. and world news and developing predictive reporting that was recognized throughout media all over the world. It made me a very popular guest in German radio, British radio, Africa, most of the continents. I was able to tour via radio, talking about news intelligence that I decrypted from the voices of human speakers. And I was at the same time I was marketing my private clinical practice at yourinnervoice.com, where I provide individual services for people looking for answers to their emotional health and family origin issues, producing a special kind of speech decryption service. So in the course of this kind of reporting, my reporting was very successful in so much as that I consistently beat the odds and reported stories, the facts from stories that became mainstream news weeks, months, and years after my reports were first initiated. And so as my name climbed the grapevine of U.S. media, I was eventually invited to host my own feature at the mother station in CBS in radio in Minneapolis, in one of the small sister stations down there. They gave me the green light to start planning for syndication across the country based on my excessive high ratings in radio and television. I peaked out on CBS Television News in Cleveland, where I participated in a broadcast that received the #1 Nielsen rating for the November sweeps. I think it was 2005 or 2006. And so my tour of the media world took me from the lowliest caller into top 40 radio shows as a kid to top rated television, where again a major partnership like CBS stood up and helped me to reach audiences. Without Fox News and CBS and all the big players who stood behind me, I would never be able to reach the audiences that I did.
And do you miss being on the radio?
I miss connecting with audiences, absolutely, and I feel that in today's world, where censorship is such a watchword on social media in particular, and deplatforming issues are arising for talkers of all stripes, then it really makes me look back at the privileged ride that I experienced, and in comparison, I feel like it could hypothetically be impossible to recreate that under today's conditions.
No doubt. You can't recreate lots of things that happened 20, 30 years ago, 10 years ago.
So to your point that, we are a different society. We are
absolutely
a different society. Our hierarchy of needs and values has shifted dramatically, and it's exhibited in our public choices and decisions. And I don't just refer to our electoral votes, but I mean our responses to national crises and emergencies is if we were to hold the 9/11 events and the public response to that up to today's crises, when we consider the scale of reported death being, factors of multiples of the losses over 9/11, well, 9/11 became a cause of war, and the U.S. launched an invasion, multiple invasions over this nonsense, and yet here we are with so many more. We've lost so many more people apparently, but nobody's knocking like that now. Nobody's mobilizing nationally. Nobody's unifying nationally to do anything. It seems we're in our isolated lockdown, locale, regional experience. It feels, maybe I'm mistaken, but it feels like there is no national unified response presently. That's clearly identifiable. That at least I can identify.
Right. There's so much to say in what you just conveyed to us. I do want to talk about the sort of acceleration phase that we are in right now. Our lives changed in a matter of weeks.
Yes.
To the cyber gods, as I like to call them.
Yes.
All hail the cyber gods.
Are you talking about social media?
I'm talking about all the giant corporations that tell us what we can think and say or do, basically.
The major media influencers who bombard us with advertising
right.
and messaging. Yeah. That bombardment of messaging that defines that by de facto defines cultures because just by compelling people by force.
Yeah, but also think of the online services that we use compared pre-COVID. We're pretty much forced to use the internet now.
Forced to use the internet versus, give me more. I mean, television, radio, newspaper, internet, these are all different kinds of media.
And we're all slaves to the media.
The slavery to the media. Well, this is the thing that we've created this monster, and it's brainwashing us
cyber gods
against our best interest.
Right.
Well, mass media has this effect, and this is a known thing. It goes back to stage hypnosis before there was broadcast, right? You go to theaters in previous centuries and millennia, all the way back to the Greeks and the Romans and their theaters, and the oratory and the play and the theater, and the audience effects that were being studied and researched at those times. That the art and science of audience interaction and propaganda were being developed in the ancient world. It's not as if we just made it up. It's simply that we're doing it
evolved
on a scale that wasn't possible in the ancient world.
It's evolved, that's all.
And it's refined. It's much more refined than it was, but the principle is the same. The human urge, in other words, to orate, to tell stories, and to influence is native to our species.
Yes, and John, by the way, the last time you were here, we did a little bit of a reverse speech. Well, we didn't actually do that. We just played some of your clips.
Mm-hmm.
Just to refresh the newer listeners out there, how on earth did you get involved in that, John?
I got involved because I was interested in digital audio, and I was deeply involved in music research since I was a teenager. So in my music research, I was transcribing musical performances by virtuosi, different instruments, to learn musical materials. And in the advent of the digital age in the 1990s, where the PC desktop became a usable digital audio workstation, I invested in some software to help me with those studies. And then as the internet evolved within a matter of months and years, I started to learn about radio broadcasts coming out of the United States that I wouldn't necessarily access. Because, for example, full libraries of radio archives were available online for shows that you might hear on a Friday night, but if you miss it, the radio station might replay it sometime. But now we could access show through digital archiving. We could access shows whenever we wanted to hear them. So I went back to Art Bell's archives then. They became available. Started listening to his broadcasts on that topic, and I got in touch through that with a school in Southern California that had been licensed as post-secondary vocational at that time, been through state certification. They were offering vocational training in clinical applications and investigator applications for these speech studies. And so this is a very complicated area that has history. Essentially, I can replicate the science that was published in the letters section of Nature, the science journal in the late 1990s, referring to studies coming out of Southern California where research was done to granularize speech recordings and resequence the grains. And in those sequences, people were hearing human speech sounds. They could recognize speech even if it was sampled, granularized, and then resequenced. And the Associated Press said that out of that, they said the brain understands backward speech. So people who understand granular audio production and granular techniques, such as reversing the spin on a grain, in the time domain, that's the domain of like audio production, music production. Those kind of tools have been in that realm for decades. And I'm simply a world recognized expert in a very narrow element of digital audio and in a very specific procedure, whereby that I'm able to use this technique to decrypt future intelligence from present day conversations. So my famous reporting included the inaugural address of President George W. Bush in January 2001, where I determined that an invasion of Iraq was pending, and published it at that time. I identified the BTK killer in Wichita, Kansas, by his demonic confession messaging that I determined from these audio studies. I had an interview, a pre-court hearing interview of the killer. I heard him talking about demonic possession issues.
Really?
And then when I researched the story in depth, I discovered that the real killer had told reporters in the 1970s that he had demonic possession issues that drove him to kill. He wrote about it in letters to the police and the journalists in Wichita, Kansas in the 1970s. And so that was my evidence that the parallelism was significant, in so much it was statistically unusual to have the suspect and the known killer both talking about the same issue.
Right.
And so I brought that to morning radio in Wichita on the morning of the Dennis Rader's court hearing appearance. And 50 minutes before the appearance, I presented my evidence in Wichita morning radio, and 50 minutes later, he confessed to all the crimes. And 10 days later, he openly stated to the press that he felt that he was possessed by demons, which is, it's kind of the level of tangibility at this point, the level of embodiment of my abstract claims about, decrypting human speech.
Yeah.
All of a sudden becomes embodied and tangible to, it becomes empirical at that point, because from thousands of miles away, without any contribution any participation from me, the speaker is volunteering what I already had described. Beyond that, I continued to make different kinds of progress reporting and writing. I wrote for Examiner.com for several years. I wrote stories about Russian spies, including the FBI.
By the way, John, I have to interject one moment here. In terms of being demonically possessed, your thoughts and opinions?
Well, this is, yeah.
I must ask.
My story invites that question because it's a strange way of investigating crimes.
Yes.
The occult.
Do tell.
Right?
Do tell. I mean, John, I come up with notes for you and for other guests, and all of that just goes right out the window.
Well, I think that what was significant in this case was that was the fact that was verified. There were other, gruesome facts in the case that were verified. And I don't mean to trivialize the terrible horror that he inflicted on that community. But in terms of what was meaningful for my research, it was the hit on target for factuality and verification that would be impossible for me to influence. But as to whether I could empirically measure that claim beyond what he had said, it's all that we're now in the realm of faith. It's all faith-based. And so in terms of faith, I'm interested in yoga. And yoga is interested in things happening on Earth. We're not interested in events in heaven or in hell. We're interested in things happening here. And if we think people behave like demons sometimes, maybe we think we need to help remediate that.
Well, that's
and
true.
Sometimes people act like angels. Well, we hope to support that too.
Yeah, well, most of the time they do act like they're possessed by something, right?
Well, hopefully by they're better angels. I hope. There's a lot of things about human consciousness that are not easy to understand. If you want to talk about the concepts of possession, then you have to go back to anthropological studies, or else you have to go to indigenous cultural studies and become a part of an indigenous society to recognize their traditions related to medicine practices and possession. So we could talk about like Stone Age trance channelers, these kinds of conceptions, where these primordial practices that people still practice today would be manifest in Stone Age societies. And anthropologists say we can see this because remote tribes still practice in this. In some cases, have been found to practice continuously in an unbroken link from their ancient tradition. So possession, concepts of demonic possession or spirit possession are as archaic as humanity fundamentally. But as to what they really mean, modern psychiatry has abandoned that as a road to cure. I mean, modern psychiatry is interested in molecular medicine. They're not looking for the Lucifer molecule, right? So, but in the realm of faith and in terms of day-to-day human experience, it's the folklore and the modern day folklore that accompanies claims would escape us. And further to that, I will say this may sound a little hypercritical, but I would say that a church culture, a religious culture that is deeply invested in the priest's power of healing demonic possession would have a big investment in propagandizing that as something that was a valid claim. Whereas I have no investment in it whatsoever.
Understood. Some would say some politicians are possessed.
Oh well, this is part of this. Yeah, this is part of today's rhetoric in the political
Correct.
sphere,
Yeah.
specifically because of high-profile figures who've been around this White House, and the president's spiritual advisor, who has made intensive pleas, public pleas, for things like seemingly angel immigrants from other countries to come to the United States to help solve the problems. I think it was one of the things she was asking for. She was calling them angels, but I think she was talking about immigrants. But other things, she and others in her faith circle talk about demons, and that I think the specific language of today, in the most extreme arc of rhetoric, is that one's political opponent is a demon or demon possessed, and therefore the only virtue is in voting for the opposite party.
Right.
That's the kind of talk, that's the kind of guttural talk that's emerging
You could thank
in today's
social
political discourse. I don't know if it's a very high level of discourse,
Sure.
but people are talking like that.
Well, you could thank social media for that. That's where all of that started. You label someone a demon or he's a satanic, and then all hell
Demonizing
breaks
one's
loose.
enemies again. This goes back to the ancient world. I mean, our ancient Stone Age ancestors were demonizing each other too, because it's the only way you could motivate normally sane people to go to war against each other. You have to boot camp everybody to get them excited about killing enemies, because human beings aren't normally predisposed to psychopath and sociopathic behavior. So in other words, the politics of demonizing is an archaic ploy. It's typically it's war is a what did that famous Marine general tell us? War is a racket.
Right.
And he saw it firsthand.
And man is wolf to man, John. You know that.
Well, and so in this aggressor versus aggressor world, big dog, top dog has to be a virtuous dog, or else we're all doomed.
Certainly.
We're all doomed because we'll be led by bully force to our doom otherwise.
And by the way, John, what's going on with the family and friends out there in Canada in regards to COVID? Do you know anyone who's contracted the virus?
I'm aware of folks. In my circle, it's not hard nowadays. I'm sure, as you know from asking around, it's not hard nowadays to find folks who have been pretty close to it. Because some folks that I know have been hospitalized, and those wards have had infections while they were in.
Really?
So these extremely complicated scenarios are happening in the lives of the people around me now.
Well,
certainly it's not the only this isn't the only place where this is going on, but yeah, we've got people in hospital. We've got infections in hospital. We've got infections in senior homes. We've got a lot of seniors here. We have a lot of our beautiful seniors here in Vancouver, because it's considered it's a warm, modest climate compared to the rest of Canada. People come here to retire. And we're losing a lot of our seniors. Our senior health officer in the province, cries regularly, it seems, when she gives her briefings, because it's so disturbing.
Oh my, she's actually crying.
So what I want to say further is simply that yes, the events of these times are very disturbing, and it's been very disturbing for me personally. I found it very disturbing, and I'm doing my best to give my best every day. But I assure you that I've never felt as challenged in that capacity as I have this year. It's been the most challenging year.
Some of my very religious friends say this is the end of the world. And COVID is one of the plagues from the Bible, they say. One of the prophecies.
Well, we may feel that, we're being remediated through a terrible, bitter pill. We may feel that way. It's possible, that we may feel that there's some reckoning coming through this, and possibly some resolution too, but the pill is intensely bitter. This is not a sweet pill. So, humanity isn't the first time our ancestors or us as the descendants were ever called upon to address a very severe problem.
Right.
And the basis that I look at is that the proof of our continuity is founded in the fact that we were born. Because if our ancestors were not intelligent enough to come up with creative solutions, we would have never been born. So the fact that we're here is evidence that humanity is intelligent enough to overcome some very serious problems. I still hold out hope that an intense creative and brain trust in North America that's pulling in a good direction for everybody to get through this. So I haven't seen all the results yet, but I have a lot of faith in our brain trust here.
Someone in the chat, K-Dub says Vancouver got hit pretty hard.
Well, compared to the rest of our province, we're a very large concentration of the population for British Columbia. If you look at a map, we have vast tracts of open land here, and a lot of resource development like mining or lumber and fishery versus massive urban centers. But Vancouver is it's comparable to a Seattle or a Portland, and the climate here as well. We're a very fun-loving, liberal culture traditionally. People come here
Sure.
to a tourist town, a place to celebrate, these kinds of things. And so those kinds of social vibes definitely influence people's decision making in the first half of the year. I'm quite sure. And there have been, even up in this past quarter, there have been parties where fines have been issued, or I've had reports in my network of friends.
Yeah.
The folks had birthday parties with 100 guests, and 40 guests got infected.
Holy shit!
So talk about hard hitting. Yeah, I would think that's a pretty intense wake up call. That the level of danger here is tough. I was in a city restaurant, one of my favorite places in the middle of town, last week, and they were asking for they wanted to temperature check and ask medical history stuff before they let you into the restaurant.
Oh my!
And my feeling was, I respect the liability the owners have when they're hosting people in their space, like what their insurance must look like to have people coming into their place, right?
Right.
I respect all that, but there's no way I'm going to get off. I'm not going to go off my sofa to go someplace for a medical TSA strip down before I can, have some fun. I mean, that's not hospitality. So, I don't feel too good about that. And the other thing, I guess, if you want to hear my street beef about life in Vancouver, is that a lot of our small business owners in retail are under terrible pressure. We have Manhattan priced real estate here, believe it or not.
I see.
And so
I didn't know that.
The cost of operation for small businesses is already enormous. So when all the tourists don't show up, and all these other things, all these pressures come down on their cost of operation. It's the ridiculous turnstiles that they have to run through and hoops they have to jump through to stay open and all. So by the time you get to them and you get to the stores, it's easy for people to be exceptionally cranky and have frayed nerves and lose it. And we're losing our civil decorum amongst ourselves. It's becoming like. I don't want to. You're talking about the dog eat dog culture. I don't want to go scrum every time I need to go down to the corner store to get milk. When I was a music student, spending the winter in Manhattan, I was staying in some of the least fancy neighborhoods. So I was learning all the ways of the streets. Like how to not get killed and stuff like that.
Oh my!
So when I need to go to a corner store to do that trip to get the liter of milk or the pint, I had to walk between the guardian angels and the crack dealers on the sidewalk down there in Hell's Kitchen, just about to bust out into whatever street fight was going to happen. And there's just me trying to go to the grocery store, and that was a daily experience. And what I'm getting to is the daily experience in Vancouver, the joyous, celebratory, cultural, and relaxed, laid back Lotus Land vibe that we had shared here.
For the most part. Yeah, for the most part, that's sort of the picture I got. But I mean. I don't really want to admit this, but what I do know from Canada comes a lot from Mark Emery.
Are you close with Mark?
Yes and no. I don't want to, I can't really talk about that, but yes and no.
I only know him through the media. I have no acquaintance with him. I know he's here, but he used to be here. I think they moved to Toronto. I don't know the latest on Mark Emery.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But from what I do know, it seemed like a very relaxed place, very, like you said, very liberal. So I'm always.
That's what we were selling. The people. A friend of mine who grew up in the Bay Area in the '60s moved up here during the Vietnam War, and he said when he was talking about leaving the country to come up here to his friends down there, they were telling him that place is like left of Pol Pot. I mean, we're further left than the Maoists over here. That was the cultural reputation. So all of that, that sort of vibe, we're not feeling it right now. We may get it back.
I see.
They're promising we're going to get it back, but we're not there now. We're in the middle of our winter. It's dark. We're praying for longer days and if we get some relief on these other fronts, that would be good too. But yeah, right now it's not. Yeah, this isn't a. We're not. There's no big celebrations happening around
Yeah.
here. Everyone's sort of staying at home. And Vancouver, I'll tell you further. Just give you even a further
Mhm.
Vancouver tip. It's like this. Um, people here. It's not necessarily the warmest cultural place. Singles who come here always say the same thing. They have a hard time meeting people. So in other words, the flinching that comes with the COVID culture has just amplified people's
Oh yeah, I bet.
distancing already. We're already a little on the cold side up as it is, socially here. People complain about that for decades here, but I tell you now that anything, people are triggered very quickly to flee from any kind of social activity where there's any risk or any hint of risk. It's just really, it's disunifying. What can I say? Am I disappointed? Absolutely. I don't like living like this.
I don't think anyone does, but the good thing that came from social distancing, and for me, this is for me personally, I don't like when people will stand so close to me in line. So now I don't ever have to worry about that anymore, John.
Well, Sting used to sing about that, right? Don't stand, right? Don't stand so
Didn't
close
he?
to me. Exactly. It's a famous Police song.
Right. I was going to say, didn't he say that? But yes, I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. I've never liked that, John. I don't like the
Mm.
feeling of anyone being behind me.
You don't like crowds.
Don't like crowds at all. So this isn't really too troubling for me personally.
Mm. And where you reside, what is the size of the community?
It's really small. I live in El Centro, California, way down south. It's a very small population.
We're talking like a couple hundred people.
Well, I would have to say right now it's about 44,000.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, so that it's a substantial population. But you're laid out just like a regular city grid, urban
Yeah,
layout.
pretty much.
You have
It's
all
a bit smaller.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Well,
agriculture out here. You don't want to be out here if you have allergies, that's for sure.
you have a big agricultural zone. Wow.
Right. You don't want to be out here. You're going to be sneezing for days.
Well, yeah. I've on previous talks you talked about living down there, and you talked about the lake and
Oh, yes.
the different conditions. Well, so, Southern California in general. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is sunshine.
I talked to you. Did I mention the Salton Sea? Is that
yeah, Salton Sea. This is exactly what you're
Yeah, it's a
telling
little
me.
bit further away, but yes, the Salton Sea is very close by.
Well, and so that's you had said it's a powerful environmental stimulus there.
Right.
You really know about it by living in the area.
It's terrible out here. And by the way, John, I must ask, in comparison to the regular citizen out here in America, I'm just curious how they compare to those in Canada in regards to COVID-19. Are they behaving in the same fashion as you see on television where you're at, John?
Um, yeah, I think to this question is, my simplest oversimplified assessment is that we're a lot alike minus the riots.
Okay.
The riots that colored Seattle and Portland 2020 history never happened here. We had a determined protest community that was out regularly, and they're probably still out there. And there's a lot of other issues up here, like pipelines and other problems that people are protesting vigorously. But to that point, the protest against mask use, protests against vaccination. There's a deep medical activist.
There's some
community out
activism
here
going on. Yeah.
challenging these kinds of historically. So this is just another chance to challenge vaccine and whatnot. So it's like that. But again, we haven't. I think that the social programs that the federal government initiated, as well as the provincial programs that were initiated here and that are continuing, alleviated numerous issues that we would other face. In other words, Canada inherently, through its design as a federal entity, has a social safety net built in. There's a very different kind of a vibe than necessarily what everyone is experiencing in all the different U.S. states. If we make comparisons in terms of federal spending to support small businesses and other interests, grants to employers to hire and such, just was it $160 billion or something that was made available this year, just to support those things, to make sure that people didn't fall through the safety net up here. And I know that folks in the States are still are still appealing for relief. There was a relief package that was available at the beginning of the events, but there's the intense capitalism that and the business opportunities in the United States had that had, I guess, been construed as a safety net, that there would always be a way to make money. If you were there, it was such a dynamic economy, you could always find a way to make money. Up here, we don't promise that, and it's more socialistically how to say it, conceived. If we people like me, get kind of tired of living in a less dynamic business environment and seek the excitement of
Do you want to
the
come to
American
America,
life.
John?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to come to America? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, I like doing business with America, absolutely, and I like being there as a visitor. I just never sealed the deal. I'm a reincarnated American. I like to joke, that I have deep interest in the fortunes of America, and I vibe very very strongly with a lot of the cultural and intellectual things that happen and that can only happen in America. So yeah, I love a lot of things about America. I'm a great fan and supporter of all the good things that can happen there. Absolutely. But I guess I imagined as a younger man, especially when I was riding the waves of the media, that I could cut a deal and that CBS's law department would just sign me in with a green card or whatever to bring me into the country. That's why I thought that, because that was the trend for folks in my peer group who were Canadians who went to graduate school and all in the same period as me, is that they got hired by U.S. companies, like big U.S. companies. So I come from a talent pool, and that was there was some expectation of that. It didn't happen the way I foresaw, but my peers are down there working in prominent positions all around the U.S. Because they cut deals with major companies.
It's hard for me to imagine that there are Canadians out there running around angry about wearing a mask.
Well, we're a very sensitive and intelligent group. We know that historically that freedoms that are taken by governments aren't easily returned. I mean, that's sort of a simple premise. We've lost, our freedoms have been suspended, and there's been research that was just published today that worldwide, everyone in every country pretty well has been touched by this loss of rights and freedoms. Has been a constraint that we've been living with. People here are protesting. My friends are concerned about it. I don't know what you would need to see to be convinced that people here weren't concerned. To be honest with you,
Yes,
I'm possibly one of the lesser excited people about some of these issues than my Canadian peers were, competing with Alex Jones and
Sure.
Steve Bannon for top red metering talking points, right?
The reason why I say that is because every Canadian I ever met has always been super polite. That's I'm like, how can they be
part
right?
of our cultural veneer. It's true, but Canadians are a dynamic force. When called to action, we're famous fighters in all of our conflicts that we shared with the American forces. But are we a little less excitable in some ways? Is our temperament different? Yeah, we have a different temperament. We live in a colder climate, and maybe our cooler heads are helping us to prevail up here. I don't know.
Well, out here, John, as you are well aware, people are angry.
Absolutely.
People are very angry. And the last several days, it's been, 200,000 cases a day of COVID?
The numbers are staggering.
The situation hasn't improved, and I know people are tired of it, but the virus doesn't care about your feelings. It's just not going to go away if you close your eyes and pray it away. It just doesn't work that way. You know that, John.
Well, yeah, like anything else, there's denial, and then there's the risk of losing what yogis call parallelism, which means that through denial, we get so out of touch with reality that we fall into a different kind of danger. Through our willing ignorance, we expose ourselves to further risk. So when all of this started, as much as I disliked what was going on, I made a point out of going out daily to investigate the neighborhoods that I was familiar with, to watch society change.
Nice.
And to attempt to adapt to the changes, and that included eventually being compelled to have to mask up to be in the store and all that kind of stuff. But I was just forcing myself. I was forcing myself to try to get into the flow of whatever it was, because hiding in a cave and pretending nothing was happening would absolutely be adverse to my interest.
Do something, yeah.
I had to adapt, adapt to survive.
And that's what life is all about, adapting.
Adapting, absolutely. The pressure to adapt is an evolutionary force, and it's part of what made our ancestors more intelligent and come up with solutions that they would never have been compelled to come up with otherwise. If life was all just about sitting around on the sofa and watching television on reruns and eating popcorn, none of us would be compelled to solve any problems out there. So,
Hey, I mean, John, I do know some people that sit around watching Seinfeld all day.
well, yeah, but is it making them more creative?
Not at all, but well, actually, I take that back. They're on psychedelics, so yeah, they are kind of creative.
Something happened.
Yeah, I don't know why Seinfeld, but well, they are Jewish, but that's another episode.
Another story.
That's another story. But yes, John, I must ask you, do you take a flu shot?
I know I don't regularly participate in that. I have my own wellness routine that I follow in the winter, but that's not one of them.
Interesting.
You see, in Canada, this may be news for listeners, but I was called to investigate this. There is no mandatory vaccine whatsoever in the whole of Canada, let alone British Columbia, where I reside. We don't have mandatory vaccines here. What we are concerned about as people on the street is that the corporations will seek to compel us to vaccinate as terms of usage of services, and we're not all exactly clear about this. But let's throw a hypothetical out there: is that
right.
Folks who don't vax up may have to wear a mask in a hospital, for example, as an example of what might come up. And I think the reasonable comparison is that we have nuclear facilities up here, like nuclear reactors. And I guess if you go into those facilities, you probably have to dress up a little bit in some safety gear. I mean, is that an unreasonable burden on those people because they're going into a facility where that's the standard? I don't think it's so unreasonable. So if that's the case, if I want to visit someone in a hospital and I have to put on a little bit of extra stuff, it's the same to me as if I was in a biological research facility or a clean room at a manufacturer's. I would be following the rules.
Understood. I personally have never taken a flu shot at all.
Throughout, even from like your youth and such, you were never forced to take those for school and so on?
Never.
Here we had to take rounds. I had to take the 1960s versions of what was being delivered, which is, of course, it's said to be about 6 times as many now, or some huge number of shots that kids are expected to take today. But I took what was expected, and I took what was required to travel out of country. We had to get vaccinated against tropical diseases and that kind of thing as well.
Did you take a polio shot?
I don't know if I had that. I'm not going to really get into my medical history if that's what this show is about. But I would say as an average Canadian,
there goes 30 minutes of there goes 30 minutes of content.
This whole show is predicated on me.
Yeah, just on you.
My medical history. I see.
Exactly. So, John, I must add to this conversation. Some vaccines have proven safe and effective, but as you know, 50% of Americans will not be using the vaccine, and of course, the other half, they probably will be taking it. But speaking of the 50% that will be taking the vaccine, just keep in mind that only 50% of any vaccine is effective. So, you're not really bulletproof.
So yeah, getting down to reality, I think that our society is organized around issues like insurance, and that insurers demand certain standards in order to allow people to open their places of business. And so without insurance, they can't operate. And so we're locked into concepts like vaccination in part due to their deep entrenchment in our, the foundations of our economic systems and such. That's what seems to me is what's going on, much more so than, the idea that someone, I don't mean to oversimplify, but it's kind of like someone sat down for a couple hours and just put a bunch of stuff together and put it in a vial and said, here's your vaccine. I mean, in terms of the duty to care that's going on here, in terms of the normal, Dr. Fauci quoted 5-year research period before they release anything to the billions of people. We're not looking at any of that here. So the medical expediency of what's being served is evident to thinking people. And then we have to look at what we have to look at then is those who are compelled through their employment or through other contractual obligations to have to take the vaccine that's demanded of them. Those will be our frontline military, medical, those folks due to their terms of employment. And if it's their duty to perform, they will have to do their duty, and we can only hope that the best for them, that they get a good result. I am very concerned as a lay person. I'm very concerned about the apparent chaotic approach to safety that's being practiced here. It's appalling to me. But because I live in Canada, I don't feel
Sure.
compelled that anyone's going to be forcing me to take this thing anytime soon. I feel like I'm going to have a just incredible amount of time to make a decision about relative safety questions here before I even get involved with questions of people telling me they're going to try and puncture my skin. That's my
Right.
feeling about it. And so, the folks, in part, I'm informed by the learned folks in the United States who have published on questions like this for decades, without having been informed by by courageous researchers who came before, and many who may have made mistakes along the way. But the fact that we had the freedom to talk about these questions, provides a potential avenue to safety for some of us today.
Right. I
If,
agree.
if we
And
didn't have
mhm,
an existing culture and of alternative thinking and publishing, we would be a lot worse off without it.
I agree. And most people out there aren't even asking that question. How safe is this vaccine?
Well, and so are vaccines good or bad? An effective vaccine that is safe and was properly carefully administered could be a great thing. I'm not like so in other words, I'm not like I'm not fixed on this idea that vax equals evil.
Yeah, you're not an
It's just that
anti-vaxxer, right?
yeah, anything done properly can be awesome.
Sure.
But I think the clear question here is that the rush order status of this is the first red flag. I mean, how many of us, hey, let's go, when we do housing construction and build houses on rush orders, let's do that and see how long they stand up.
Right.
Let's build
Mhm.
cities on a rush order basis and see how long those last.
Good. Yeah. Good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a very good point there. And John, I must say, early on, when the outbreak was first starting to ramp up, I was telling people here that there will be mandated vaccinations for, people on the front line, cops, firefighters, paramedics, those sort of folks with those gigs. And, my audience thought I was smoking crack with Mayor Rob Ford.
They thought that was so far out, the notion that the military service folks and such it would be demanded of them that they participated.
Correct. In other words.
Well, it certainly, I would think if you would talk to folks in your local hospitals and stuff, they wouldn't have been confused about that.
Well, it's the lack of common sense, my friend.
Well, so it's an affront. It's an affront to folks' sense of freedom, their innate sense of freedom. We're values, the deep values-based culture that people express in the United States pertaining to freedoms, personal freedoms and choice and liberties and such, and then even the notion that their ancestors moved there to get away from oppression. Emotionally, this feels very oppressive. When I was a little boy, I didn't like getting injections. Me and a lot of other children were like that. We didn't
Right.
like it. We there's a lot of things. There are a lot of things in life that we flinch at, and this whole process that we're going through collectively is none of us would. Very few of us would sign up to volunteer to live through these times, right? It's like
Sure.
what's behind door number A is a
I'm
year
glad you
plus
said that.
pandemic.
Let me just interject 1 second. I'm glad you said that. Early on, people were thinking that there would be some sort of baby boom going on right now since we were all sequestered.
Yeah,
But we didn't see that. We got the opposite. We got a high percentage of domestic violence cases.
we talking California.
Yes, specifically
So
here.
domestic violence,
Hmm.
divorce,
Oh yeah.
and marriage counseling. All of these are big areas this year.
Oh yes. And COVID did not help, despite what some of the experts were predicting.
In terms of growth of the family and bringing
Yeah.
people closer together. Well, it turns out maybe that a lot of us had unresolved issues, and those were exacerbated through intimacy, through persistent intimacy. Like I just lost my job, now I'm home all day, and my partner's home all day, and now we're getting to know each other, and now it turns out that we aren't as compatible as we might have thought we were because we used to only see each other for 30 minutes a day.
Can you believe that, John? There's some people out there that probably got a divorce, or um, either the guy or the woman, they probably struck each other at one time or another during this whole lockdown.
Yeah, these are very severe problems. I mean, I work as a clinician, so I'm very sensitive to the level of danger that already exists.
Wild.
Battered women's support services, and all of these other kinds of services. I think there's been a very intense demand on them this year.
By the way, in terms of the vaccine, Mexico also greenlit the Pfizer vaccine. And it's also quite strange to me that Mexico also bought the Chinese vaccine. Don't ask me why, because I have zero idea why they would acquire that one, but they did.
Well, on the Pfizer note, Canada accepted the Pfizer vaccine unconditionally, whereas in the United States, the FDA approved it for emergency use only, which is an interesting differentiation.
Mm,
For emergency use only, that
yeah.
was this vaccine was not really embraced by the FDA, other than as a political expedient, it seems. But as you say, in Mexico, it seems they're running with it. In Canada, that they're running with it too.
Yeah, they're just going to go all out.
Well, and so these things will billions of people hypothetically are going to get vaccinated with this stuff, and there's all kinds of special medical effects, some of which may be health, and a whole bunch of other special ones that we don't have a clue about may also manifest through this. And it's this is the way it is rolling. Now, folks are very concerned about this, but given the way our society is structured, unless federal governments are stepping in, to act against these things, these are federal initiatives. I guess the federal government's signed on to it. I guess our national patriotic duty is to go with the flow, right? I mean, people can leave the country, but and go where? I mean, where are we going to go?
Where
Where
can
there
you
isn't a
go?
COVID rule, oppressing us nowadays? I think we're at a certain point. We're kind of in for a dime, in for a dollar with this. I'm here in Canada. I'm a Canadian. I'm in it. I can't sort of like not be up here and sort of be half in and half out. I'm in past my eyeballs in whatever's coming up. I'm going to be here riding it. That's what I'm going to be dealing with. I don't have 100% control over everything in my life. I live in a society, which means I'm answerable to others. I have to report to other people, and that reporting duty is an important part of my identity as a person. That I am responsible to others, not just thinking about myself. So all these things, I can't promise anybody, and I have fears about what's coming in terms of the decisions that I've made so far on the social level, and the political levels, about how to deal with these problems. I'm just riding this thing out with everybody else at this point. But certainly I've defined some positions. One is no rush to vax for me.
Yes.
And two is economic return to economic stability with sanity. Like finding a sane way to make a living under these conditions. These are there's a necessity that the economies continue to feed, so the families can continue to eat. I mean, we can't. We have so. In other words, I'm alluding to. There's a feeling of there's so much at risk right now. We have so much to lose, and as first world nations, it seems we've already lost quite a bit. In terms of functioning economies at the consumer level, we had, due to panic buying and other constraints, we had a shortage of basic consumer goods here in Canada. First time in my life I ever saw that. First world nation, typically the economy, you don't have lineups to get into stores and stuff like that. You don't have rationing of you see that World War II, World War One. That's about the only time you see that. Otherwise, you're called a failed economy. Isn't that what you have? Life magazine, pictures of the Soviet Union bread lines. Look at our failed economy in the Soviet Union.
I was thinking that might
so much better.
I was thinking that might happen here in America. The return of bread lines.
Well, it's here now. I mean, if we follow the news, that the folks I mean, I was watching the news on bread lines this year, and I tell you, there were reports out of North Texas, lineups. I mean, of thousands of vehicles, folks, to get access to food to feed their families. There were serious, intense local and regional socialism programs to keep Americans fed under the Trump administration. I called it Trump socialism, and I don't condemn anybody for feeding their family at all.
Sure. I don't see anything wrong with feeding your family by any means, but that I was not fully aware of.
So what I really mean to say is that we need to return to functioning economies and better improved versions of functioning economies. We still have to solve that problem and solve the health problem. I'm not like the folks in Texas who are calling for all the seniors to go out and sacrifice themselves for the economy. I'm not talking like that at all, but I'm saying that we cannot allow that to collapse and expect that the future is going to be an improvement. It is, in other words, what you were talking earlier about the media's sway on our way of thinking. Up here, I mean, every day, the front page of every day is COVID-19 and health, health, health. But without a functioning economy, folks, rampant unemployment and stuff. These are social ills. Everybody has to be fully realizing their potential. Our societies have to provide opportunity for people to realize their full potential. That's the whole point of living here.
Right. It's a very complicated year, to say the very least, and it's not even over yet. We still have a long way to go. Unfortunately, I have concerns with the holiday overseas travel that's still going on, believe it or not. And of course, most Europeans out there think they're in the clear, but they will be hit with a dose of reality as well. You're going to see a huge surge of cases by Christmas, and you can quote me on that one, John.
You're saying that this season is going to be a spreader season?
Correct. You can definitely take it to the bank. You will see lots of death here in America, John.
Well, I am so sad that, that I feel the same way about this, and that I have bought into the predictions of 500,000 by Feb 1st and stuff like that. I've bought into that, and most reliably, because all of the blue sky predictions never came to pass. So now I had to buy into the notion of mass incompetence. It really hurts me to think like that. That in the Bodhisattva vow, people talk about the end of unnecessary suffering. That folks are supposed to seek out ways to mitigate unnecessary suffering. And here, it seems we've created circumstances somehow that folks are suffering on a mass scale, and it's super antagonistic.
It is. My goodness.
Well, it's very antagonistic. It's a terrible pallor. It's a deathly pallor has overcome us. It's like a Vincent Price movie. It's the Mask of the Red Death. We all thought we were having a great time until we looked into the face of the guy who looked like us, and then we realized it was all over.
I just won't be taking this vaccine anytime soon, John, just like you.
Yeah, I say you got to hang in. You got to watch and wait. And we don't know. I mean, as a layperson, I don't know actually how long it could take for side effects to manifest. But I in spirit and in principle, I support the ethics of the folks who are compelled to take it as a term of their employment. I support those people to do their best. But I wish I could say to them, and I thought that it was risk, that they weren't being exposed to an inordinate risk. But I've read the Interpol warning, and I read the British MHRA warning. Interpol says the risk of tampering with these devices is high enough that they want to talk about it. In other words, if Pfizer is shipping and they have custody of a bunch of vials, and somehow those vials are tampered with while it's in their custody, well, they have liability. And any word of potential tampering and damaged goods would typically, under most shipping arrangements, be grounds for refusal of shipment. But no one's addressing that. Canada's accepting Pfizer vaccines, even though they're coming with this warning that they're potentially tampered medicine. And British MHRA, who regulates safety of devices and medicines for the British government, says that they thought enough of it to issue a warning about folks who have existing allergies, or the risk of a first-time allergic reaction related to inducing epileptic-like seizures and stuff like that. So
yeah. I
thought that was a little outrageous. Medical community folks tell me that all vaccines have that level of risk, but the MHRA made a point of telling the world that it was a problem. So I don't think that the MHRA was like a naif first-year organization that had never heard about this problem. I think they thought there was a serious problem, and that's why they published it. The Interpol, MHRA, I think those are two good standards. Until someone can give a reasonable answer to me, prove to me, show me a factory seal, non-tampered medicine, and further show me that something that doesn't introduce epilepsy, in people who are healthy, then maybe I think that was worth doing. I'll say further to that, given all the social pressure around this, is that if the vaccine is in fact safe today and good for us today, well, guess what? It'll be just as safe and just as good for us whenever it is that we feel like we need to take it. How about that?
Absolutely.
In other words, my acceptance of the vaccine is no evidence of its virtue or corruption. If I reject it,
yeah.
If in fact it's good and I'm just wrong, well, the facts will still be that it's good. So, so what's the big deal, right? What's the big deal? When I determine that it's safe, it will still be as good, unless, of course, it's no good to begin with.
The issue with the vaccine, in my opinion, is the also the simple fact that the virus has mutated time and time again.
Hmm.
So that kind of makes it a little bit difficult to come up with a tangible vaccine, even though the FDA, they claim this is 95% effective.
Well, and so, as you said, these were early. There were early discussions when vaccination became part of the discourse. That question you just raised would be an important consideration. So again, this looks more like a political expedient because they can say they made a vaccine, as opposed to something that is actually tracking the predatory pathogen. Because as you say, if it's mutating, then what you're treating is the earlier generation, right? You're not
Right.
treating the current generation. You're treating some iteration from the way back. But you can call it a vaccine in our society, and the government will greenlight that and buy a bunch of it from.
And you can still get infected again. It's
go.
already been recorded that people have been reinfected after contracting the virus and being allegedly, I guess, cured or treated.
Safe. And so then is this really immunodeficiency? And are people's lifestyles contributing to immunodeficiency? There were certainly questions related to morbid obesity and its effect on people's ability to respond to these kinds of stimulants. So these kinds of questions arise is our lifestyle healthy enough to sustain us? Is one of the questions that came up. I made some small changes up here. I started, people might think is daft. I started on a colloidal silver regimen. I had bought the equipment decades ago from a company in Southern California, and I started it up again because I was able to read at the National Institutes of Health that these ionic silver and zinc are both effective against bacteria and bacteriophage viruses. It's not specific to COVID-19, but it is a bacteriophage. So I'm treating the right class of pathogens with that regularly. I wasn't on that regimen the year before. I had the equipment from decades ago, but I tell you, I sure drank a lot of the ionic silver this year.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I was a little concerned. Is my skin changing color? What, right? But I think it was my first level. It was my first layer of defense before masking became a mandatory thing in this city. I was on silver almost right away, and I think it decreased my bacterial load, which assisted my immuno system to be ready to take on other loads as they arose, rather than being burdened by what they call underlying or other conditions, and then encountering a virus. I'd be more resilient if I had to face them. So that's my simple remedy, and my simple philosophy about this is that people are living healthy lifestyles. Those healthy lifestyles preclude exposure to disease-causing conditions. So maybe that I'm a little fussy, right? I'm a vegetarian yogi, right? So
Right.
I follow a fair number of rules, and folks who are interested in like rules-based living, may be receiving a lot of benefits from that aren't the mainstream population isn't getting. And I say to you, two of my considerations in the spring when this health question arose were that folks were spending their days in air-conditioned environments. One, which meant that they weren't developing the kind of resilience that living outside would bring. And two, as morbid obesity, as vectors for disease that were already existing, that the population would not necessarily be as strong. One of the questions that we haven't discussed is why is it that when we had like Asian flu in the 1960s and other kinds of conditions that pandemic conditions, global pandemics that arose, I was in school back then and we never had to stay home. And a couple of people died up here in 1968 or 69 from that. But nothing. Society didn't come to a grinding halt. So is it the case, in other words, that 50 years ago we were healthier? We were a healthier society than we are today, and we were less susceptible to this type of disease than we are today.
I would say, yeah, we were probably a lot healthier back then than we are today. That's for sure. We didn't have the level of products to consume, I would say, in terms of what we put in our stomachs.
in terms of the types of foods that we eat and processed foods. So if we
Yeah.
go further and further back to our agrarian ancestors, pre-industrial revolution, they're living outdoors. They're eating the food from the field. It seems maybe they had their immune systems were more engaged in their day-to-day experience than our high-tech and urban lifestyles have allowed us to have here. Maybe we've sold ourselves short on some of the good things about our potential that our ancestors were more able to readily realize than we do now.
And to pretty much wrap up here in terms of the vaccine, I just want to add that I really don't want to deal with fatigue or aches or Bell's palsy or seizures or even dying from taking the shot, by the way.
I agree with you. I support you in that. I'm not ready to expose myself to that level of risk, and I don't see that. There's been no reasonable argument that says that I have to do it. Up here, the media, coming from the federal government through the national broadcaster here, is all about. Today, the message is, if we tell each other stories about taking the vaccine, we'll feel better about it. That's what we're getting from our national broadcaster up here.
That's right.
So I say that's this is social coercion, right? Social pressure has never in history been a good reason to make medical decisions, and certainly not now.
Oh, right. Over 3,000 deaths, by the way, more than 9/11 or Pearl Harbor.
Per day now,
Per
day
day.
loss, and so this is horrible.
Yeah.
This horrible sense of loss. It's like we've lost a whole city full of people in one shot. It's unimaginable, and in part, I think our response to it is shock and denial, because the level of tragedy is a little bit incomprehensible. The levels of death are just a little bit beyond us. We're as a society, it's sort of like we're in a post-traumatic stress, deer in the headlights kind of a phase in large numbers. We're having trouble keeping up with what's happening, and we're having trouble making effective decisions, and that is actually that our quality of decision making, et cetera, is going down day to day the longer we try to live under these conditions. There's something called isolation fatigue related to lockdown, or what do they call it, solitary confinement.
That's right. Some people feel that way. And of course, we have to think about the mental health of many of those individuals out there who are struggling just to survive.
Certainly, and so
right.
as you had mentioned earlier, in families are seeing that amongst themselves, that quality of decision making in terms of interpersonal relationships is deteriorating, and relationships are devolving into fights.
Good times all around, right? The fun never stops.
A man loses his job, he loses his dignity, he loses his self-esteem, then he loses his wife.
The joys of life.
Well, and so this is. We're getting we got the 1930s depression, we've got the Spanish flu, and the 1968 Watts riots all at once.
It's a great time to be alive. It's quite entertaining, as long as you can survive it, I say.
If you can survive these times,
these are awesome times.
You can handle just about anything.
Love that. And as I was mentioning earlier, John, lots of people are pissed off, and this is probably one of the angriest people I've ever come across. His name is Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers. He says he's calling for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act to prevent Biden from taking office.
There may be the outgoing president still has cards in his hand, and there may be some special moves that could include all kinds of outrageous outcomes that many of us may not want to see, and so. People have a lot of Trump fatigue, but I'm certainly willing to pay attention to President Trump's decision making over the next 40 days until he leaves the office, because I believe that the powers of the president are so great that he can unleash all kinds of outlandish scenarios that would change society, in severe ways. I'm very afraid and concerned about it. Nothing I can do about it, but I'm certainly not going to stop paying attention to President Trump until his term ends.
And here is that clip of our friend, Mr. Stuart Rhodes. John, here we go. It's about 1 minute and 7 minutes long. Let's
7 minutes?
I mean, 7 seconds. Sorry about that. Thank you for catching that. All right, here we go, John.
All the files, all the databases, and he's Assange and put him in charge.
That's kind of low, isn't it?
From my end, it is. I can hear it, but
Let me turn that
you
up
know,
for you. Yeah, let me play that back. That was kind of low. Let's see if I could get that going here.
Go see all the files, all the databases, and he's a Assange, and put him in charge of doing a data dump to play to all of you, all the skeletons at the closet.
Yeah, this is
Show the world
kind of low
who
here.
traitors are, and then Inspection Act, drop the hammer on them. And all of us veterans who swore that oath until you're.
I'm gonna have to try to find a better clip of that. Yeah, that the audio is super low for whatever reason.
I mean, I could hear it on my side, and I respect that. You know, this is one of these scenarios. There are many folks emerging as public speakers this year, and one of the great American traditions that I used to enjoy watching whenever Muhammad Ali was on the microphone, called grandstanding. And
By the way,
we are
now
in a time, you know, everyone
Mhm.
is grandstanding their hardest right now to appear prominent. But I say to you, you know, that big speeches are super duper, but unless you can get Attorney General Barr or the Supreme Court of the United States involved, none of this has any traction whatsoever. So, you know, at a certain point, you know, free speech, the culture of free speech that invites folks to get up on the soapbox and tell the world their feelings and opinions is a valuable thing. But I don't necessarily think that just because Rush Limbaugh, you know, has the golden microphone, that every word is something I need to hang on to either, right?
Right.
Well, so again, I respect that. You know, in the culture of, you know, the voice of the people. People
We respect that. That's
exercising
true.
their rights to speak, but unless you get some traction in court with your 50 lawsuits, I think you're incompetent. I mean, what do you want me to say, right? It's great free speech. It's great entertainment. I love Muhammad Ali telling me he's the greatest. I would never dispute him on that.
I'm with you on that one, 100%. And by the way, the listeners claim that they were able to hear that. So as long as they were able to hear that short clip there, we are good. And that brings us to another clip from our friend Deanna Lorraine. Apparently, she is a host on InfoWars.
I see.
I think she might be having some sort of relationship with Alex Jones, from what I read. But I don't know. That's just a rumor. I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know if you've heard anything, but that's what I read.
No, that Alex Jones has human relations. You could ask his ex-wife about that.
That's true.
She had quite a lot to say. You're familiar with their settlement and their disputes in court?
Somewhat, very vague, but yes, it was a bit of a nasty toss-up from what I recall, and I think he kept a good amount of that money.
Well, his enterprise continues to go. I mean, he must have, you know, burned and churned through a lot of supporters over the years, but he is a powerful enterprise today.
Oh, no doubt. The guy owns like 2 mansions, I believe, or did.
Well, some people think he's a disappeared comedian reinvented as Alex Jones. You know, that Alex Jones is a persona, and that really he's Bill. An American comedian from the 1990s.
Bill Hicks.
You know, Bill Hicks, yeah, Bill Hicks.
I don't think so at all.
Alex Jones excited a lot of us with his Bohemian Grove tapes back in the day, and then folks started to question how was it that he even got on site and was able to do all that without actually being, you know, part of the operation, right? But you know, in terms of creating exciting media, Alex Jones created a lot of exciting media.
Sure.
He made himself rich through the course of it. But I think a personality like that also burns and churns through people because, you know, using people as props is also a big part of our culture, right?
Well, he started to try to live the gimmick, and that's where he went wrong.
Tell me more. What do you mean?
Well, you know, he put up this facade. And now he's kind of like, you know, he's sort of a victim of that. He sort of has to play that role now, 24/7.
So unless your persona is someone that you can actually be, shouldn't try to be that persona. Right?
Most likely, yeah. I mean, if you're going to paint yourself in one way, people are going to expect you to be that the whole time.
That's his brand.
Yeah, just look at all the people out there who come up to... I was trying to think of an actor who's known for like a role that he's always playing. Let's say like Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, he plays the same guy in every movie.
Right.
You know.
He sort of became his own stereotype.
Correct. He typecasted himself.
Typecasted himself.
As like a stoner in a movie, and he just plays himself. It's a lot of talent.
Well, there you go. I mean, this is this bind. You know, it was his path to fame and fortune, inventing that persona. But at the same time, as you say, it also becomes a prison. You know, the thing that but everything, like what I get to is that everything here is like that.
Sure.
You know, our material pursuits will also bind us. You know, we have to follow the rules if we want to fly on the airplane. You know, it doesn't. If I want to know the secrets of what the president is saying, I have to accept the burden of responsibility of that knowledge. There's no way out of it. So everything, in other words, you know, all of our. That's what the yogis say, that the best thing to do is that our material actions are for service, you know, to support communities and societies to succeed, and not just for our selfish interests, because we'll get more out of achieving and succeeding together than we will when we're just like the bitter man in the top of the penthouse there with his own, locked into his own room. There was a film with De Niro and Jerry Lewis, A King of Comedy. Did you ever see that?
I believe, yes. Yeah, that's an old school one.
And so back at like 1980, and so Jerry Lewis is Johnny Carson. He's the top of the Tonight Show late night television.
That's from 1982, by the way.
82. There you go. And at the same time, it's kind of like it's his prison. And so this is, you know, it's a condition of life. It's not only Alex Jones who found this out, but all of us in our own way. You know, whatever decisions I made 20 years ago, and public decisions particularly, defined my brand, you know, to the public.
Correct.
And so, you know, when we spend our currency, we want to feel that we made a good investment. If we feel like we frittered away the currency that life gave us, we'll have lots of regrets. But if we spend wisely, make a good investment, then we'll enjoy the fruits of the harvest later. If Alex doesn't like, you know, his material, he doesn't like his niche. You know, if he wishes he was in horticulture instead of conspiracy, you know, it could be kind of a hurting situation. I think Joe Rogan has a bit more of a balanced position, you know, where he can play in a whole bunch of areas without appearing like an overly extreme, and he's a very popular broadcaster in his own right. Alex bullhorned his way into the public imagination, and I guess, you know, he'll always be there, you know, bullhorning. That's going to be his brand.
That's very true. And another good comparison to make, and everyone can sort of relate to this. This will resonate with everyone. John, you know, you have people in your life, people that have known you forever, they want to remember you a certain way. And in their heads, they do remember you a certain way. It's like they want you to be that character from the TV show Cheers.
Oh yeah, well, you know,
that's what I'm trying to say.
They remembered you as a kid, and they want that kid brother again, right?
That's how people see Alex Jones as well. You know, they see him as that guy. People want you to stay in that character forever. They don't expect you to evolve.
So this is very interesting to your point, because I think I conspired to break molds myself.
Yeah,
to protect myself against that kind of.
You want to prevent from that happening to you? Yes.
So in other words, I publicly got involved in other fields beyond my speech research, which is what made me famous. And you know, there were certainly people who wanted me to stay in my own lane, right? But,
sure.
But I insisted, you know, that I could offer value to other communities like UFO or paranormal, and as a therapist as well. And so
you're a man of many hats.
Yeah, I'm wearing many hats, and I think it serves me better as a human being to be able to participate in more than one way in society, and not just be compelled to only one role, but rather to be to you know, full participation and full realization as a person.
Never limit yourself, John.
I'm sorry?
Never limit yourself.
Never living yourself.
Never limit your abilities.
Limit yourself. Limit.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Limit. Exactly. Don't impose self-limits. Just other people. There's always someone else who's ready to do it for you.
That's true. And that's always that's always a fun way to let other people run with any sort of narrative. Other people. It's always going to come down to other people's perception of you, anyways.
Other people's perceptions. Well, if I care about my relationships with other people, I don't want to disturb them unnecessarily.
No reason to walk on eggshells. You might as well just dance on eggshells, my friend.
Well, it's sort of like this. After the initial shock, people go to sleep and they wake up the next morning as if nothing happened. That's what life is really like. And if we
Sure.
are, if we're all too delicate, nothing will ever get done. I'm not delicate when it comes down. I'm pretty forcible in insisting on imposing my way if I can. But yeah, to the point, there's if we care about our relationship with other people, we'll make sure that we conduct ourselves. We work towards our goals in ways that support other people achieving their goals at the same time, rather than destructively attempting to achieve our goals, at the expense of everything and everybody. Right? Trail of bodies left in our wake. The Harvey Weinsteins and the Jeffrey Epsteins. Right?
Is man better at creating or destructing, or better at destruction rather?
Better at. Well, no, I think that man is made for much higher things. Although destruction may be a necessary part of getting creation to happen. You have to, if you want to make a building, you got to lay down the foundation. You got to dig a hole. There didn't used to be a hole
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the use of force isn't necessarily. We try to moralize it, but I say use of force can be very ethical. There's lots of ethical reasons to apply force in life, to get ourselves to get up out of bed in the morning to go to work, or get off the couch and go out and do something. Right? It takes force to do all these things. If we're apathetic and we're unwilling to exercise our individual initiative, someone else is going to exercise it for us. Right? So we are called upon to make the most of ourselves and become the best that we can be. But we're bringing the most. If we care, that we're bringing the most to every situation with the people and the situations we care about.
Yes, and before we go back to our friend Deanna Lorraine and listen to what she has to say, you were mentioning Alex Jones and Joe Rogan. By the way, Howard Stern made the news once again by re-signing. Did you see that?
Is he re-upped his contract with Sirius?
Yeah, he re-signed for another 5 years.
Well, this guy is just, he's going out with the whole U.S. economy has gone into his pocket, it seems. And this guy's just incredibly rich at this, this late time in his career. He's cashed in. It's an amazing career.
It really is, and I give him all the respect in the world. 66 years old. He's been in it for so long. I don't exactly know how much he signed for, but it might be like 120 million a year.
It's just huge money, and I don't know if he's still doing television, but
Good
he had all the
Lord.
television money from Idol and those types of programs. So this guy is he's very celebrated, and this is a cat. If you look back 20, 30 years, the kind of topics that he was covering were really, really adult territory.
Really
right?
good.
This was not Mr. Rogers. This is someone. This is the rock and roll of talk radio we're talking about here, right?
Right.
So that he had that lifestyle, that he partied with all those celebrities, and he lived this long, and he had those books and films, all this stuff he sold. It was just the guy's destiny. He was born. Talk about right place, right time, right person. He
The
had
right
it all.
time.
But he had to struggle, right? He had to struggle. The word is, he was living out the back of the station wagon and all the things he did when he was starting. So if he didn't have the courage, to go through that, it would never have happened. What can I say? Talking about American radio success story in terms of the money and the business, certainly in terms of a lot of the decision making that he made, the program decisions that they made, I would have been out of there so fast. I would not have made a Howard Stern career. There's no way.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But I enjoyed. I laughed a lot. Some of that programming for sure. Me and a lot of other people laughed. So what can I say? I like to laugh.
He still runs a pretty good show, in my opinion. Lots of people trash him for what he's sort of evolved into now. They say he's kind of turned into Don Imus, but I disagree. I don't think he's turned into Don Imus at all. He's just evolved. He got older. Of course, he's not going to always talk about the same things that he was talking about 20 years ago. I mean, who really would be?
He said in one interview in the last 10 years that he regretted some of the things that he had done. He would prefer to have a softer approach to some people and issues than he had necessarily been called to in the past. Commercial pressures made him do a lot of the things that he did too.
Well, you have to be shocking, especially on the radio, to obtain that sort of attention. It's very difficult to do, especially in a car. And he's someone who is able to hold an audience while you were in a car. I think something like 20, 30 minutes straight, or maybe even an hour. I'm not quite sure I recall the correct number, but that's insanely impossible to do.
Yeah, it is very difficult, and that's why my career was so successful because I had those kinds of numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I don't
you
have all
had
the
success,
money.
so you know what that's like to have that sort of retention from an audience. It means a lot if you could hold an audience for more than 10, 15 minutes, especially while someone's in their car.
Time spent listening is the big metric, and radio producers and show hosts never stop talking to me about the TSL numbers on my appearances.
There you go. There you
So
go.
I don't have, I don't have. I'm not Howard Stern. I don't have Howard's millions. I'm not
No one
famous like
is.
Howard.
I don't think anyone would be
But
Howard Stern, yeah.
I have the industry ratings.
But you did good, though. You did really good for yourself. You had a great run.
And and it was, I was invited to the party, and it was a socially, it was a free flowing time, and I free flowed as much as people could tolerate.
Love that. But I'm glad you could look back and have some joy in it. Some people just, regret everything.
Well, a lot of people go through a lot of heavy things. I think that I was kept out of a lot of heavier situations, business or political dealings by circumstances. I was, somewhat sheltered in a way, because most of my time was just a guest. So I did, in other words, there was an opportunity for me to get into, I didn't have a lot of bad dealings or bad medicine, bad chemistry between me and people. Not a lot of that really happened, but it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. People make mistakes. People want to be famous. People become addicted to fame. All kinds of, being a celebrity is hard work. It's not
Oh, yeah.
psychological demands and all kinds of problems. Not everyone's cut out for it, but a great celebrity can be an inspirational figure. And
Sure.
the State Department treats them like ambassadors. The America sends its top media people and performers all over the world, right?
Show
They're
business is,
representing the American brand.
show business is not for everyone.
Not everyone's cut out for it, and
Yeah.
that's not just the talent part. It's the the character and
Gotta have the drive.
the perseverance.
The drive, the perseverance, the perspication. You gotta know everything.
Perspicity.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, the demands for a talker, a morning show talker, you got to be up. You got to be up 3 a.m. developing your stories. So at 5 a.m. you're on the air, and then you got to burn through that. You got your callers, and you got your production people screaming at you, and you got to go into a meeting with the boss after the show, and you got to renegotiate contracts and salaries, and so you're running. It's a lot of hats. It's like being a chef in a restaurant, right? It's a
Gotta do all
significant
kinds
amount
of
of
shit.
responsibility.
Yeah, you have to do all kinds of preparation. And now we can go back into our friend Deanna Lorraine now. The
All right.
future Miss Alex Jones. I think. I could be wrong. It's
He's
just a
sweet on
rumor.
her. That's what you're saying.
Yes, it's just a rumor. I don't know if he, hooked up with her and gave her a show. I don't know that. I'm just assuming that. Major
No
difference.
casting couch over at the Alex Jones show.
I would hope not.
Harvey Weinstein is turning in his jail cell.
Love that. Here we go. Uh-oh. Are we not getting audio?
He's talking about Trump supporters.
I have no idea if anyone can hear this.
Courage and wisdom, throw the Republic under the bus. I'm listening.
Oh, you can hear this, okay. American patriots are not going to stand for it. I guess there was dead air right there, according to the listeners. I'm not sure why the audio is not being sent out.
We had some audio problems earlier tonight, so
Yeah,
it's
we
a little
did.
par for the course. But the Americans are concerned because they're not seeing the future that they recognize or that they identify with in the events that are occurring in their own country. They feel alienated.
I think you broke it, John.
They feel alienated by what they see happening in their country. I could say, well, the justice system is fair and impartial, and if people don't have faith in the pillars of their government, they got to have some faith too, right? I mean, a lot of the right wingers say, trust the plan, stay with the plan. Well, what do they mean? They say keep the faith. That's what they're saying. Keep the faith. Well, have people lost their faith? I mean, is this the first time this country ever had a democratically oriented election? I don't think so. Is there going to be another one? I hope there will be, just like there was, 4 years ago. Lots of chance and opportunity in America. That was the message in the past. So, is it that people have lost their dream and vision and hope for life in that country, and they're saying that there is no hope no more? I feel my life is hopeless. I feel I have no sense of direction. I have no sense of identification with going. I feel alienated in my own country. It kind of sounds like they're saying that. And I tell you what, as a therapist, kind of a big boys pants situation. Big girls and big boys right now. Like we're going to have to step up, strap up, figure out what country we're living in and what we're ready to sign up for, and get on with what needs to be done with the rest of living, or else, I'm going to make some big adult decisions here. I don't know what to say. You got fair and impartial justice system. These are supposed to be patriots, and they don't have faith in that. I don't understand that. It's irrational to me. Grandstanding is good, free speech is good. Those folks, if they don't have any traction in the courts, then maybe they need to find a new career. I don't know what to say. If I want to run around talking about legal infractions on the streets and get everyone excited listening
Right.
to me, and then I go in front of the judge and say, actually, this isn't about fraud at all. Is anyone going to think I'm credible? So, free speech is great. My tolerance is also limited. And as a therapist, if that was my client coming in and they were on sort of like a zombie mode of complaints, that I would be excited to arouse them from that state, to get a grip on something practical and run with that rather than seeking to make some kind of proclamation every 5 minutes about their hurt feelings. I really don't know what to say. You got one president, you got a Supreme Court, you got your Congress, you got your whole system there, and it's been running, good, bad, or ugly. It's been running for a long time, and now people are saying they have no faith in it. Well, I guess those people better come up with a different system and pitch that to the people. And let the people make a decision based on that proposal. I don't know what else to say. They got no solution, and all they're doing is complaining. That's, I guess, is what I'm saying. I don't hear a solution. I hear a lot of complaining. As a therapist, I'm not impressed.
Understood. But yes, that's the sort of thing that's going on right now in America. As you know, lots of people feel exactly the way she does.
Mm-hmm. And so we get stuck in our feelings sometimes. And as adults, we're responsible for our emotions. And I'm going to speak to this point further. I'm going to raise another point that's become clear to me in light of what you're saying, is that it seems a lot of us adults right now are confronting very difficult emotions, and we feel that we don't have the skills to manage what's coming up for us right now. And so one of our strategies for dealing with that is denial, and another one's called projection. We're talking about demonizing. That's in psychological terms, that's construed as projection, where our fears and things that we can't deal with about ourselves, we would rather project those onto others. We don't want to deal with, we don't want to take responsibility for our own emotional lives. And this is a fail from a therapeutic point of view, that adults don't either have the education skills or resources to assemble their own emotional integrity, and instead choose to find others to focus on and somehow project onto all their toxic feelings and all this kind of stuff. You're probably hearing that I don't have a lot of respect for situations where folks aren't enabled to manage their own emotional lives, but that's a lot of what I'm seeing, is that folks appear to be dealing with or attempting to deal with very difficult emotions, and they're not having any success, and they're not doing very well with that. So what are their options? Go find a competent therapist that they can trust, to read some books on self-help, care enough about themselves to manage their emotions, care enough about their families and the people around them to get their emotional lives together. That's all I can really say at this point. Folks are dealing with difficult emotions, and a lot of what we're seeing in the grandstanding are people expressing that they don't know how to handle the difficult emotions that they're feeling, and they're giving expression to this through various claims, many of which are entirely irrational, and which the courts are striking down as irrational. So what it really is telling us is just they're languaging their emotional lives, and they don't even understand that. We don't even understand ourselves, but we want to tell everyone else how to do everything. I think that's a serious problem. I think it's a call to self-awareness, call to awakening. It's a call also to care. I mean, if we care about our society, we're going to make resources available to help each other, so that folks aren't stuck, like we have a society. People like me are so stubborn. Folks are still people still fighting over who won World War II right now.
That's
You know what I
true.
mean? Like, so that this kind of stubbornness and all this kind of stuff is in our temperament for sure. But if we care about our society and we want everyone to make it to the next experience together, then we do our best to help each other. And part of that is going to be getting people to having a little wake up call to big boys and big girls are welcome, right? The rest of this, if folks are just standing there whining and complaining, it's not productive. It's not solution providing. It's just they feel like they're giving some free speech. God bless them, but
Yeah.
I don't see any solution coming from that.
Crying gets you nowhere in life. That's what I've learned.
Right? There's time for tears and then there's time for action, and we shouldn't prolong the tears part. We should get onto a good plan. We should identify a good plan, and all of us getting onto that together and working together. And like, how about working together as a nation and all that kind of stuff, and feeling like we're all part of something that's creating a positive future. Like, I think some of us used to feel optimistic, right? That what was happening here was creating a better future for everybody, and I want to see more of that. I believe we can do it. I want to see more of that. I know it sounds. People may think I'm just trivializing all of the resentment and, as you said, the anger and all the deep feelings. But I'm a professional therapist with over 20 years of clinical practice. I'm recognized by state mental health coalition leaders. I'm recognized by people holding advanced degrees. I mean, I have insight into these questions, and I say to you, without people having success in managing their emotional lives, they're not going to be happy with anything. So the feeling of conflict that's arising, in part, is this is just pure emotion. Because if it was not emotion, then what these people first of all, what people were saying would make sense. If you try to transcribe these speeches that people are giving, how much continuity is there from sentence to sentence? Well, it's irrational. What's going on is irrational behavior. They're emotionalizing, and what's worse is that their peers they're so naive as adults they don't have the skills to manage their own emotions. And that's I don't take any pleasure in people not succeeding. I support people succeeding in this. I want people to succeed. So that's all I can really say. Manage your emotions, succeed in life.
Love that. And of course, there's another individual out there who is quite emotional, and her name is Paula White. Are you familiar with our friend Paula White here?
Well, is Paula White, this is the spiritual advisor of the president?
It sure is.
Yeah, it was very famous, and one of the fabulous grandstanders of our times. Bring her on.
Well, here is a very interesting clip that I like playing. I'll play this for you, John.
Strike and 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 strike until you have victory. For every enemy that is aligned against you, let there be that we would strike the ground, for you will give us victory, God. I hear a sound of abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of shouting and singing. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. For I hear victory, 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 victory in the corridors of heaven. In the corridors of heaven, victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Hamanda aka ata raka teda baka sanda ata ambo osa tata rite eke banda ata rike didi ashata. For angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here. In the name of Jesus. From South America. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. From Africa. From South America. Angelic forces. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement. Angelic reinforcement.
Oh my, John.
For I hear the sound of victory. I hear the
Oh
sound.
my, I have to shut her up there, John.
Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
So, John, what's going on there? Tell me what's going on in your first initial reactions to just hearing this. What goes through your head?
Clearly, this is an appeal for immigrants from Africa and South America to come to America and clean up America's political problems. She's calling for immigrants. There's no doubt in my mind. Africa, Brazil, South America. they're coming here. They're coming here. I mean, she's saying this. She's
To better
calling
America.
for the immigrants to come to America.
Oh
It's
my.
clear. I mean, it's clear to me. I can't interpret that any other way, because all of this sort of appeal to faith. I mean, people pray, but it's as if God is ignorant, because God needs us to tell God what's going on, because God doesn't have a clue what's going on. That's this whole premise to me is I'm not a praying kind of a guy.
I'm
We
shocked.
meditate on we meditate. We believe in God, but we don't. Our relationship with God isn't a beggar.
You're not speaking in
And
tongues, in other words.
yeah, she's giving full expression to this external form of ritual, and this is very interesting to our earlier discussions about shamanism and medicine people in primitive societies, because she's emulating the ritualistic trance-like behavior of a Stone Age medicine person through her incantation and the rhythmic incantation, the
A
brain
medicine
entrainment.
woman.
So her performance, the stage performance that she's presenting, is really to emulate a primitive tribal society where a medicine person is being possessed by spirit, and everyone's supposed to believe that God is telling them what to do. The voice of the channel is now the voice of God. That is a very primitive ritualistic appeal, but it's given within a modern Christian context, right? I mean, she's broadcasting this over a TV, and it's not Stone Age, right? But I say to you, the appeal is this is like a Stone Age medicine person, and it's a big drama, because unless we're buying into this faith thing that's actually the voice of God coming out of her, then all we got here is sheer madness. I mean, if little children are watching that stuff and they're growing up believing that that's real, then I think that it's making children ignorant. I don't. In other words, I don't support that. But this is the White House embracing. The White House embraces this, and we have a hard time finding evangelical Christians in the United States who support this kind of ritualistic appeal. No, we won't at all. There's a large population, but do I say this is a good approach? This is grandstanding. This is grandstanding, and if this is being used to raise money, send us your
That's kind of low, if that's true.
Eyes of Tammy Faye dollars, right?
Oh my goodness! I mean, that's
it
so
has
low.
that kind of appeal to me. It doesn't appeal to me like this is a real spiritual thing. This is a street performance. I can go down to the homeless part of town here and watch someone do that too.
John, let me ask you. Do you think John? Let me ask you this. Do you think Trump took advantage of the evangelicals?
Well, evangelicals are not unjust in their hope for virtue in government. That they want their people in government and such. I don't think it's invirtuous for them to want to succeed. Trump is the Madonna of Catholics. I mean, he wears the cross. But
how did that happen, by the way? How on earth did Trump become the Messiah?
Oh, this is.
I'm just wondering, because look, I don't hate the guy at all. I like the guy, to be honest with you. I don't want anything bad to happen to the guy, to be honest with you. But I remember a different sort of Donald Trump from the reality TV era from 2004, 2005. Those are the sort of that's like the sort of era that I remember him from. I see him very differently than most Americans do, I think.
You mean you saw him eat the pizza backwards and stuff?
I did see that. But I've just seen this guy for so many years, and it's like I'm having trouble sort of seeing where along the time period he became a god.
Well, yeah, so it is very different, and I think that they're pitching anything they can to dupe an audience is what I'm getting. I get it. That's a grift. All of this, and if the public will buy it, they're selling it, like a lot of other cultural manifestations.
And that includes, by the way, John, I must include President Obama as well. He was also seen as a godlike figure.
Oh, okay. Well, so the messianization of the president is a known press technique to place halos over the heads of presidents and other figures in government in the United States,
right?
Using available lighting like chandeliers and stuff. Going on for a long time. So the notion that you see it is by God decreed the United States. You see this? What I'm saying? This is the holy decree, and this is it's a primordial appeal back to the time when the kings were the descendants of God, right? The kings were actually the sons of God, and so you were being ruled by God, not just a human. So that's what they're appealing to. Is again, they're appealing to the primal, just like that shaman minister is appealing to primordial urges. There's no refinement in that. That's not poetry. I mean, it's not. It's brutal. It's brutal ritual. So I say this is the same thing as like I'm talking about the degradation of culture and society, that we're appealing to such lowest common denominator values now. We're losing a lot of our potential to be better humans. I think I've kind of lost the thread from where you were going with that last point, but I hook back onto the notion that we're substituting what appears to be ineffective junk food for good nutrition that will get us into the game and make some great plays in life.
I just don't remember there ever being a time where people are actually celebrating politicians and people in the media so much like this.
Celebrating people, politicians, or well, I don't know if we're celebrating as much right now, but people are showing intense identification with, for example, like let's say, typically when candidates are declared winners and losers in elections, that there's some, people have feelings, but you don't necessarily see so much public excitement, like ongoing protest and all. This is, it's kind of novel. I don't remember that when Reagan was elected or G.W. Bush. I don't remember. I mean, right? We contested election between G.W. and Gore, but this level of public insanity, no, we didn't have that at all.
Not like that, yeah.
Now, and so to go back to what you're saying, when did Trump become the Messiah? Well, when did the Trump brand, when did it attempt to, uplift itself to transcend, right, its material origins? I mean, Trump was a developer. That was the brand, for decades, right? Famous developer. Good, bad, or ugly, it was famous, and that was the brand. And then they translated that into a television production brand, and then they translated it into a presidential campaign. But this appeal to loftiness is it colors other presidencies. It's true. I think this is. I do not recall though. Although it was used, the iconography of messianism has been used to portray presidents in the media past. I do not recall that any of Jimmy Carter was the chosen one, or I don't recall that he personally pleaded that to the public. I don't recall any president pleading like this to anybody. This is the first president I'm familiar with actually making those pleadings, and I say over Twitter was where a lot of this happened. Yeah, chosen one, all that was on Twitter. So he's a pitch man, and I said this when I talked to you guys early in the year. I said, president is a famous salesman. He likes to pitch, and he always likes to have something good to pitch. He's always, whenever he comes to the microphone in front of the audience, typically he's got something he's pitching. He's putting deals together, right? And so all the stuff they're pitching, pitch you as Jesus, pitch you as this, whatever. They're trying whatever. They're throwing things against the wall to see what sticks, and they're selling what the audience is already predisposed to buy. If I want to sell Bibles, I probably wouldn't run out of market anytime soon, right?
Exactly.
They're predisposed to buy it.
And by the way, I'm just wondering about who is collecting that money from those red hats. That's a very profitable sort of product there. It's a commodity.
It was a very famous men and women wearing Trump embroidered baseball hats, and I don't pretend to know the business dealings. I mean, it's
so simple yet
limited things. I know Ivanka has trademarks in China, but what do I know?
It's so simple, John, that it just made a killing, I would have to imagine.
The message and the appeal, the garment itself, the whole thing. Some very smart marketing person put that together and made a killing on it. It's true.
I'm actually pissed off that I didn't come up with something like that.
Well, you'd have to be the right person for the audience to hear it from in the first place. Hearing that from Trump was part of what made it work. Because I don't know if another pitchman could have
no,
pitched
of course
Make
not.
America
Yes,
great to the same effect.
My
he pitched
goodness.
eating pizza backwards, and look what happened.
Who eats pizza backwards? The president.
That's one of those things that goes on up in Trump Tower, apparently, if you watch the
goodness. My goodness.
Well, again, so this is it's all very exciting. American legacy is rife with mysticism. The founders being Masons and all.
Right.
In God we trust. Right. I mean, there's even this whole occult overtones to the history of the nation and its formation, born born in a nest of occult ideas already. And so if there are paranormal and occultic indications that arise, in the course of governing, so be it. I mean, you don't have to look very far to find a bust of Moses with horns on his head. I think down in the Capitol building.
I know
they've got that one, right?
Oh, don't shock everyone here, John. They're barely realizing that this is a Masonic republic.
Yeah, and so that when we see indications of that from time to time, are we so surprised really? And do we really understand what they were alluding to, anyways? All the secret symbolism and all that. Do we really understand? So people like me had to become part of a traditional society just to get a basic concept of what was going on with all that ancient knowledge stuff.
Absolutely. And John, we are not just finished just yet. We're not at the close here, by the way. Almost coming close to the end here, by the way. And I do appreciate your time greatly.
I'm hearing jingle bells in the distance.
Are you now? Who's there? Is that Santa?
On his way.
He's on his way, yes. By the way, I forgot to mention Dr. Fauci. What exactly is your thoughts and opinions on one Dr. Fauci?
Oh, that he to me, he represented America's institutional science, where a lot of your tax dollars went. His career from the 1980s forwards is a very rich career and a very prominent figure. He was a leadership figure in American medicine for decades, and now it's quite possible that he made a number of mistakes given his duties and responsibilities that he had to assume for all those decades. Over that time, there's been a lot of critics of Dr. Fauci that have arisen, and further, even in the last year, people have said that they were a little disturbed that, on the one hand, early on he would be telling people don't wear a mask, and later people telling people wear a mask, and saying like people, the confusion from the mixed messaging, and Dr. Fauci did play a part in some of the mixed messaging as well. But in terms of his competency to evaluate the questions of the day, I'm a believer in having America's best resources on the job, and I think out of the team that I saw, including the leadership at the CDC, Dr. Birx, I thought that Dr. Fauci impressed me the most. His knowledge is imperfect, but I think he's competent to evaluate the problems more so than a lot of the other people, including the political appointees who replaced. Was it Alex Azar or somebody in the last 3 months who just resigned? I mean, political appointees. Dr. Fauci's real scientist.
By the way, people were calling him Dr. Falsey.
Yeah, well, and people have a lot of criticism, and he works. He's working. He's the people's scientist here. He's going to take the criticism in a free speech society. People aren't going to shut up. He's a big boy, but what he represents to me, when I think about it, America's facing a kind of an apparent problem, seemingly, and America's best resources should be on the problems. I have no question in my mind that the best resources in the country should be working the problems to protect the nation. I just don't think any differently about it. And there's probably even greater people in the medical industry and working in roles helping in public medicine that I have no clue about, who could even be better leaders. And I want those people to be promoted, and I want America's investment in society and science and education to come to fruition and to be, have a big success. I do want that. Even though I talk anti-vax and I criticize and stuff, I absolutely do want the best, because that's the promise. I mean, America's investment, and all the generations who invested to make all the things possible that you guys accomplished, you guys should be continuing to build on that and expanding, on that record of accomplishment. It's a no-brainer to me.
Absolutely. And by the way, I think we had a missed call from the 234 area code. Yeah, I'm not sure who was calling in, but I do apologize for missing your call there. And I believe, John, I do have a clip for you here from early on in the game of our friend Dr. Fauci.
The mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them.
And yes, that was him very early on in the game, by the way.
Exactly. And so this initially, and I was paying attention to what he had to say, and I thought it was a reasoned argument. And then we note that later his position changed. In part, there was concern, perhaps, that the stockpiles of PPE throughout the United States were not as well managed as they could have been, and if the public were to take up all the inventory of available masks, that it would be denied to the first responders. The reports out of hospitals of the staff being reduced to wearing garbage bags as PPE is indicative of that was a problem.
By the way, he also conducted an interview just recently, not too long ago, and I have a clip of that for you too. His comments caused concern from the black community, by the way.
Let's hear what he has to say.
Here we go.
Those of us who are trying to convince our African American brothers and sisters to trust the process, because it's ultimately to the benefit of the life and safety of the individuals as well as your families and your entire community, is that to first understand the reasons and empathize with the reasons for the mistrust, as opposed to pushing back against the mistrust. And one of the ways that I try to do it is to try and dissect out not the fundamental core of the distrust, but take the particular situation you're dealing with now and say, let's try and start off on an even footing. What are the reasons for this particular situation, namely the vaccine, that you have reluctance and skepticism about getting vaccinated? And I think there are two major issues that when I explain them to my friends and colleagues and people who I don't know in the African American community and the community of people of color, is that the speed with which this was done. Isn't there something reckless about that? Well, the first thing is to point out that the speed has nothing to do with compromising safety or scientific integrity. It's due to the extraordinary and exquisite advances in vaccine platform technology, which has allowed us to do things in weeks to months that formerly took years, several years, and to engage in a dialogue and talk about that, as opposed to just feeding it to them. The second thing is, well, how do I know that this vaccine is really safe and is really effective? Is this just some government ploy? We've been fooled before by the federal government. You gave some very cogent instances just a moment ago. Well, or is it the pharmaceutical companies that want to get rich over us? Well, we can address both of those. First of all, the determination of whether a vaccine is truly safe and effective is not made by the company indirectly, and the government doesn't see the data at all until way down the process. The data first come to a totally independent data and safety monitoring board that is made up of experienced clinicians, scientists, vaccinologists, statisticians, and ethicists. They look at the data and they independently determine if it's safe and effective. If it is, they show it to the company. The company then analyzes it and presents it to the FDA and applies for an emergency use authorization or outright approval. The experienced career scientists, not the politicians, the career scientists in the FDA examine the data and then, in association with their own advisory committee, the Vaccine and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee, or VRTPAC, those individuals then advise the FDA. When they then say that the vaccine is safe and effective, I will tell you all that I myself will be perfectly comfortable in taking the vaccine, and I would recommend it to my family. So it really is a process of trying to dissect out what the reasons for the skepticism are and to try and address them individually, fully respecting the underlying skepticism that you have every reason to have for historical reasons, to balance those two. That's how I would approach it.
So in that conversation, in what I mentioned earlier is that there have been advances in society, including African Americans in science. And my understanding is that that independent monitoring board has African American scientists on it. In fact, one works with you directly. I don't know if she's on the board, but we know that we have an African American scientist that works with you directly. And so this is, and talk, you can speak about her work, but also how important that is in terms of breaking down these myths in the historic trepidation, because it's a new day. It's not 1930 anymore. This is 2000. This is 2020. And so the times have changed, and the input of African American scientists in this process is much deeper than one might think. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think the example that you gave, Ambrose, is an excellent example. The very vaccine that's one of the two that has absolutely exquisite level, 94 to 95% efficacy against clinical disease and almost 100% efficacy against serious disease, that has shown to be clearly safe. That vaccine was actually developed in my institute's vaccine research center by a team of scientists led by Dr. Barney Graham and his close colleague, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, or Kizzy Corbett. Kizzy is an African-American scientist who is right at the forefront of the development of the vaccine. So the first thing you might want to say to my African-American brothers and sisters is that the vaccine that you're going to be taking was developed by an African-American woman. And that is just a fact. I mean, that is a fact. And I think that's some of the things that people don't fully appreciate.
All right, I'm stopping it there. And those comments caused quite a concern for some folks in the Black community. And of course, I don't represent the Black community, obviously. But, you know, I talk to plenty of people that are involved in that community, my friend. And not all of them are very happy about Dr. Fauci's comments. Of course, because of the syphilis experiment that our own government took advantage of.
If I was a member of the Black community and I was aware of syphilis experimentation, then I would be vigilant to protect my family and myself against further crimes. To quickly sidestep and then come back again.
Yeah, go ahead.
What you're saying. It's clear to me that Dr. Fauci interrupted President Trump on the matter of vaccine delivery times when he was introduced with the task force at their first presser. He interrupted the president deliberately to explain that vaccine development times usually are 3 to 5 years. So I'm not persuaded that he suddenly became enlightened about some new standard in vaccine production in the last 8 months when he willfully interrupted the president of the United States to declare that it took up to 5 years. I think when he interrupted the president of the United States, that he went past his eyeballs with conviction then. So it's people will say one thing one day and say one thing the next. That's what I will remember. I'm not going to pretend that Dr. Fauci isn't subject to the influences of a significant social forces like government and corporations and pressures. I'm not going to pretend that isn't influencing his behavior. I initially said that I felt he was competent, but here I will call this and I will say that you can't interrupt a president over development times and then come back later and say that we do things. This is the 21st century now and it's all different. Now further to that, he's making a lot of noise, like he's sort of indicating that the Black community's concerns about the health and safety is some kind of a problem. By his tone of voice, I didn't appreciate that Dr. Fauci was giving a real bedside care approach in that talk. It's kind of brutal to me.
Right. He did do that.
So, it sounds like he's at the edge of his rope in terms of what he can offer as a person, but it also sounds like someone who's under he's locked into a lot of pressure. A person in his position has responsibilities and duties. He's answerable to people in every direction. So those pressures are also driving his decision making. And I think the public has to look at that. Me, making an assessment as a successful analyst on international events, like for decades. You don't interrupt the President of the United States and contradict him in front of an audience over questions of vaccine development time, unless you know what you're talking about. Dr. Fauci was competent when he interrupted the president, and what he's saying now doesn't make any sense to me.
Of course, what we are referring to is the Tuskegee incident, the great syphilis experiment that our government took full advantage of. And of course, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just worry about what I put into my body and what it will do later down the road. And by the way, we are joined by, I think, another listener here. I hope he's still on the line. Caller, are you still out there? I apologize for putting you on hold there.
I'm here, Mike. No apology needed, dog. Happy to wait. Long time, no time.
Yeah, how you been?
Oh, pretty good. Up and down, like a roller coaster.
Understood.
Glad to get on with your guest here. I'm sorry I was late. I was busy doing some patriotic shit.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know where to start with this guy.
Uh-oh.
I'll preface this with the most dangerous kind of idiot, because he's an intellectual idiot.
Think he has it out for you, John?
Oh, I'm dangerous and I'm an idiot. Well, that sounds rational. Is this like a smear campaign on the air, or what kind of special reasons do you have for calling people and like personally attacking them? Because you don't have any arguments and you're an irrational complainer because you're having trouble dealing with your emotions. What are you feeling today? Are you having difficult emotions coming up that are troubling you? You want to talk about your difficult emotions? I'm here to listen to you.
This guy's great. He just psychoanalyzed me like that quick. No, you see, the problem is how I'm real long-winded and I can speak for like 20 minutes without a breath. So I tried to give you the.
Well, you're attacking people. The first thing you're saying is an attack. So that doesn't tell me that you have a really full quiver of things to say. Quite frankly, it tells me that you've run out of things to say before you even started.
Let me explain to you how conversation works. Like you pause and I talk, I pause and you talk. Let me just start with.
Oh, now you want to control my speech? Is this within my rights? I thought I had protected speech, and now you're telling me how to exercise protected speech. Are you a constitutional expert, sir?
Wow, this guy's something special, Mike. I don't know where you dug him up from, but hey, let me get you some facts here, Doc. That's this Dr. Fauci you like to speak about. Here's a couple factoids about Dr. Fauci. All right, his daddy Fauci worked along with Bill Gates' daddy in 1935 at the IG Farben plant under George Soros, making Decon B to exterminate Jews. Now, if you want to trust these health industry heads who've been on the air all year talking in circles to keep everybody scared and confused, but not one time do they utter from their mouth, hey, make sure you're getting plenty of zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, exercise, healthy immune system. And you want to trust these health industry experts who have you running around in circles and having you taking they stole $7 trillion out of thin air for the first half of this year.
You sound really upset when you're saying these things. Does the Attorney General of the United States know that you're concerned about these issues? Have you talked to him personally to express your concerns to the Attorney General? Because he's the chief law enforcement officer in the United States. Isn't that correct?
You know who the chief is? The commander-in-chief? Our beloved POTUS, Donald John Trump. That's
well, the chief law enforcement officer is the Attorney General, William Barr. So if you make him aware of your concerns through your constitutional representation, then you certainly you'll get a remedy through the fair and impartial courts. Isn't that correct?
Fair and impartial. This guy's really drinking the Kool-Aid. Let me explain something to you about it. The Banking Act of 1871 took the republic down. It is not like SCOTUS did not. They do not represent we the people. They represent the United States of America Corporation. That's a fact. It's enumerated in federal law. Title 28.
You sound very upset when you say those things to me. Are you feeling upset right now?
No, this is your way of trying to wrangle a conversation. It's just.
I'm just asking a question. I'm sorry. You sounded very upset. I'm just being a caring listener. That's all. I care. I'm sorry if I'm caring too much. I'm sorry.
No, you're just being a shrink asshole. That's what you're doing. That's okay. You see, I'm what they call intense. I have feelings. I'm an intense guy. Like I know things. I do things. This is what I do. And what I'm giving you is a matter of fact. When I give you these facts, you come up with this bebop bullshit about my emotions. Leave my emotions out of it.
Your emotions aren't bullshit, buddy. I honor your emotions.
Well, I mean,
emotions are valuable.
To be fair,
value them. They're not bullshit. We don't talk like that around here. Yeah. We don't talk to people about their emotions like that in value. We value emotions here.
Yeah, to be fair, caller, we do care about you. Don't worry.
Thanks.
We're on your side. Don't worry, caller.
I care about the facts. You see, like this shit that's in this vaccine, right? Lucifreeze 060606. They can't put it in your face any further. The bioluminescence that goes in your skin, it is an mRNA modifier. It changes your very genome. There's no going back from this crap. and they brought it out
Well,
of
we've
thin
been
air, and
talking
they're
about that.
pushing
We've
it
been
on the
saying that
people.
we're skeptical about the value and the safety of this too. We are concerned about public safety and vaccines just like you. We care
Yeah, we
about
talked
that,
about that
and
already.
we don't want anyone to get hurt by it.
Oh man, I just don't know where to go with you. You're just a shrink. You're a typical.
Well, I'm
shrink.
just
You sit
assuring
high on
you
your
that we
couch
just
all
said
day
those
long
very
and
same
look
things
down
on the
your
show.
nose at
We
people.
Mike and I, we're talking about
Yeah,
that.
we just
care
talked
about
about
vax
that.
issues too. You're like
Yeah.
us. We all care about it.
And
Thank you
probably
for
think the
validating our
masks
concerns. You also are concerned about the same things we are, obviously, right?
Right.
I'm more concerned about the Republican liberty than some bullshit Rona disease that's the common cold.
You think it's a
I mean,
common
you look
cold?
at the deaths. You look at the deaths. You go into any ER right now, they got to shut. Like in Ohio right now, they've got everything shut down. You can't go anywhere without a mask. If you go into an ER, there's nobody in there. They got all these dead numbers, right? I have not seen a funeral procession once this year. They lie about the deaths. They manage like this disease is so deadly. You have to take a test to find out if you even have it.
Really?
I mean,
So
the fact
you aren't able to get any civic help from any of your government officials to help you to make assessments about first-hand assessments about death counts, because that's important to you. You want to know the exact number of people dead, and you want to verify those numbers, make sure that they're not fake numbers, they're not illegal deaths, but that they're legally counted, right? That's what you're concerned.
Doc, what I care about is that liberty, freedom, the government gets out of my pocket, quits creating trillions of dollars out of thin air and giving it to the big corporations, push pharmaceutical genocide on us through tyranny. That's what I care about.
Are you a businessman?
You
What kind of an
vaccine,
occupation are you involved in?
Wear a mask, but don't tell me what to do with my body because I'm not doing it. I'm not concerned about my health because I have a healthy, robust immune system.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Are you in business? What kind of work are you involved in?
My employment doesn't matter. It's not important to you or the.
Well, okay. Well, you're a working man, I'm assuming. Is that correct? You just want the opportunity to prosperity and realize your potential in the American economy.
My bills are paid, partner. My bills are paid. I don't need government money. I pay my bills. I look after my mother. I take care of me and mine. But
I'm glad to hear that.
Again, my personal life isn't what really is the matter here. It's tyranny. Like you talk about Trump, as you call him
well, you want to talk about crimes? Just tell William Barr. He's there for you. He's your leader of the law enforcement community.
Yeah, let me tell you some problems I got with Billy Barr. All right. Well, one, he was part of the deep state operation running drugs out of Latin America. Problem one.
Why did President Trump, with his best people, put William Barr in that position?
Well, he had to put a lot of people through a lot of positions because he's in the swamp. But let me come back to Bill Barr. Okay, he was the attorney general over Ruby Ridge and Waco, where the Constitution was egregiously violated on Americans.
I had first-hand contact with the people who suffered over there at Ruby Ridge. I met them down in Dallas in 1999.
But again, the Constitution is violated. Did you hear? Come back to this. Bill Barr says, I don't see enough evidence to talk about fraud in the election. You have to be a moron or completely blind not to see the systemic corruption that's everywhere, rampant and around. I mean, they're blatantly speaking it. Michigan just said, "Oh, we got the Dominion voting machine results, but we're not going to show them to you. Why? Because it proves a fraud." Yet do you
believe that William Barr has criminal intent in denying resources, further resources to these claims? You think he has criminal intent when he's doing this?
I do, yes. I think he is part of the deep state cabal that's trying to take down our POTUS.
That is shocking. We have criminals in the Department of Justice? That is shocking.
Hello, are you a moron? Come on, are you seriously that stupid? Like they weaponize the FBI.
Excuse me, this isn't about me. This isn't about my intelligence.
I know.
This isn't about me at all. I mean, we're talking about the Department of Justice, the United States Department of Justice and criminals. What are you talking about? Oh my God, that's shocking. You said you're talking about criminals in the Department of Justice. I think it's shocking.
Obviously, you're detached from reality. You are what is it? Cognitive dissonance. This is the word. You're detached from reality. You just don't see what's happening here.
I'm just asking you questions, and I'm responding to what you're saying, bro. If that wasn't your answer, then I'm sorry. Maybe I misunderstood. What was your answer again?
I mean, to be fair, you did call in and call him an asshole. I mean, I think you're a little out of line there, but that's just my opinion.
Oh, that's all right. It's still, this is still. You have a wonderful platform, Mike, where we can speak our minds. As far as YouTube lets you do it, because I mean, there you go. Like here you go. This is to illustrate the example. You can't get on Twitter and speak freely. You can't get on YouTube and speak freely. You have to deal with fact checkers. And if you don't agree with the official narrative, if you say anything against it, they censor you and remove you from the platform. What does that tell you about their so-called truth?
I mean, I agree with the caller. This is a serious problem, and I think this needs a remedy for everybody involved. Guarantees, constitutional guarantees, should be protected by all means.
You can judge a man by his enemies. The Republicans hate Donald Trump. The Democrats hate him. The media hates him. The globalists hate him. Why? Because he's putting America first. He's a patriot. He's restoring the republic. Putting the
and how's that going? He's got up until January 20th to complete his work, and then he'll be out of there. So I hope he can get all that done. Do you think he's going to complete all of his objectives by January 20th?
There you go. That's not. There was a fraudulent election. That's not going to happen.
It was a fraudulent election? Does the Department of Justice know about that?
Absolutely, they do.
Really? What are they doing to prosecute it?
There's two words for it. It's called Insurrection Act. Executive Order 138.
So you're saying the president has to intervene, that the Justice Department can't do anything now?
No, they're pretty incompetent. I mean, it was pretty blatant when Bill Barr said that.
No, the president brings the best people. President Trump's best people now. Come on. Come on. Best people. Are we still talking best people or something else now? What are we talking?
So that's you putting words here forward. No, you see.
No, I'm reciting what the president said. President Trump has put the best people in office. That's what he said. I'm citing the president of the United States. It's more patriotic than what you're saying.
All right. There's nothing more patriotic than dissent. You ever wore a uniform? Have you ever stood in line and looked?
Yeah, I wore a uniform. How about you?
I have, yeah.
Good
Don't
for you.
tell me about patriotism. I still
good
work
for you.
today
You did some duty. You did some service and duty for your country. I'm glad to hear that.
I'm still doing it today, right now, speaking to you on the airwaves, trying to align you with some sense.
Yeah, well, by insulting people, you're failing. You want to learn communications. Maybe you go back to school and you study communications, how to communicate with people. One of the first things you do, you put aside the ad hominems because people think that you're irrational. You want to participate in the adult world. The big boys don't play the irrational card.
You see, schools have the problem. Little social justice warriors get to go to school and dictate, and the professors, they run this liberal curriculum. Liberalism is a mental disease. Right, here you go, your DSM. You got a DSM, right? And any trans whatnot, that's a mental illness. Am I right?
By the way,
not in your DSM?
By the way, we might have lost the call here, by the way.
I'm still here.
Not your call, but I mean my guest.
Oh, my boy didn't chase him away.
No, I
don't think so, because he was pretty good. He was going toe to toe.
His phone was a little bit weird. He's saying that I hung up on him.
I was going to make the point about the DSM.
Hold on, let me call him right back. Yes, don't worry.
Right, so I'll run the air here real quick, Mike. So the DSM is the manual to which psychiatrists diagnose diseases of mental illness. And one of them, which is if you have some kind of trans disorder, you're born a man and you think you're a woman, this is a disorder. You can identify however you want. That's fine, but this is a mental illness. And the head of the Pennsylvania Health Department is a man who's living as a woman. So you have somebody who has a mental illness in charge of the health and well-being of the entire state of Pennsylvania. That don't tell you, like, wonders that, this world is upside down. I mean, SCOTUS wouldn't even, the Supreme Court wouldn't even hear the case of election fraud, which is just rampant and through the irrefutable proof, video proof, is evidence is left and right, up and down, in every which way. I mean, it's out of their own mouth. And like, you just look at the like, oh, wear a mask, but you can like burn, loot, and murder and tear cities apart, and that's no problem. But when you go to a Trump rally, all of a sudden the mask becomes a problem. This is a liberalism. It is a mental disorder.
Hold on one moment. I'm seeing if I could bring him back on here via Skype. Let's see what happens here. Yes. You got to remember, John is in Canada, by the way, and let's see.
Currently unavailable.
Currently unavailable. Oh, that's not good.
And I started off as an insult, but I meant it so sincerely. And again, he's an intellectual. He's incredibly smart and educated, but yet he's an idiot. And this is the most dangerous kind of person.
He's smart, but he's an idiot.
Articulate his position with merit, but yet he's a moron. I mean, you look at Dr. Fauci. He said in 2016, I think it was 2016, last administration, he said the next administration will have a pandemic to deal with. You just look at the facts. You follow the money. And in solving any crime, there's methods and procedures to doing this. Follow the money. 2019, November, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation got together at Johns Hopkins University to say, what if we had a coronavirus pandemic? What would we do? And the main topic of this conversation, they had generals, admirals, health industry, corporations, all these people came together, and the big topic was, how can we get people vaccinated? We can't forcibly do it, but we can get the industries to make their employees do it. It's all about getting us jabbed with the vax. And again, you just follow the money. You look at the people who had money to make on this. And it's just like 9/11. They fear and terror, and they take our money. Take our money. $7 trillion out of thin air. It's never in history have they ever quarantined the healthy. We're so MK Ultra mind-numbed morons, we listen to what they say because we're scared. Why? Because Bookface told you so.
Bookface?
That's my way of thumbing my nose to Facebook.
I like that name, by the way.
And again, if you do the math and you get intellectual about it, when you get intellectual, you're going to find out real problems. Like they got to piss you off. I mean, when you find out, like, the USA is a corporation, okay, and we have a debt. This debt that we owe our big banker Rothschild overlords. And President Trump did not make our default delinquent debt payment February 16th of this year. 1 week later, they shut the world down. USA Corporation incorporated in the Banking Act of 1871. So when he keeps talking about the system is corrupted, rigged, and just crooked. Again, people are morons. There's not this whole election. Biden's hiding in the basement, not taking any interviews, and when he talks to the media, he gets a softball question. So there's no intellectual honesty here.
We're calling him, by the way. Old school way. You heard the ring.
I heard it.
John,
you, Mike.
John, are you alive out there?
Of course.
So you can hear me now.
I can hear you now.
You sound great.
I always sound great.
That's true, but much better than
mind.
Right, but much better than you did before.
That's good. You have a better connection. I'm glad to hear that. How is your caller doing?
He's still here.
Hey, John,
Okay, well,
I'm going to take a second to apologize.
Your conversation. I'm sorry.
He was waiting for you, John.
John, can I take this second to apologize? Were you listening while you were while you were off the air there?
I didn't hear you. No, I'm sorry.
I asked if you were listening while you were off the air. I explained the nature of my
No, sir.
insult, but I want to apologize, and I'll explain it again so you understand the basis that I levied this insult. Okay, where you're an incredibly intellectual man, okay, and you're astute in your field, you know, got papers on the wall that say you're smart, and you're a smart guy. But when you buy into this Kool-Aid nonsense, this makes you, as I would term, an idiot. And you're the dangerous kind.
Because you're a contrarian, and you need to be the opposite of me to create an identity. That's what the issue really is. If I wasn't here, your points may or may not be valid, but whether or not I believe anything or buy into anything is irrelevant when it comes to the facts. You know, you need me here because you need someone to lean on when you want to get loud about issues, and I'm here to support you. I want you to know that. But you know, there's a differentiating line here too. We're all just trying to make the best out of the situation with the best information we have, bro. I'm not trying to tell you or your family how to live. I'm just here sharing my opinions and my perspectives because I'm a guest on the show. I'm just invited to be here. That's not because I think I'm some big shot. I'm trying my best. I'm trying to learn too by listening to folks like you. I know you're concerned, and I hear your concerns. I'm not ignoring your concerns at all.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. I feel better here. I'm smiling on the inside and laughing on the outside.
So that's great. So you're a long-time listener to the show. You've known Michael for a long time?
Oh, yeah, for a while. It's been a while, yeah. Got a good show.
And Michael covers a lot of diverse topics. He's guest on, talk about stuff I don't know about every day. You know, almost every day there's guests, the experts that are on this show, far beyond anything that I know. But I have very narrow understanding of things, just very limited, and I just try to work within my lane. That's all I'm really doing.
Well, I think
I don't think that anything I'm saying replaces the value of anyone else's contribution.
I think our friend here, he came a little hot. That's all right. It happens. You know, everyone's a little fired up. I appreciate that, by the way. Caller, do you have anything else to add?
No, I could go on, but it's really not going to go anywhere. I mean, I could throw some more data points on the wall, and then you can tell me about my emotions, and it's not going to really get anywhere.
Well, I'm glad that you called in. I'm sorry you don't feel you're making any progress. I got to hear what you had to say, so I got some value out of it. Thank you.
Well, thank you much. Glad I didn't have to pay for this conversation.
Great call, by the way. Thank you.
We'll see you, Mike.
Take care. And there he goes. Wasn't really a call I expected there.
Are people fired up? People are fired up.
Well, people are pissed off, as I told you. And that's a good reflection of the people I was referring to. People are angry.
It's true. You know, I do my best to try to be an administrator in a group on Facebook with like 10,000 members and 5,000 active members. Yeah, I got years of discontent that I've been exposed to by reading the comments from the membership and engaging with them and their concerns. I'm familiar with the intensity with which people feel this. But further, I think that what's happened as well is in some ways I've also a little bit out of touch because social media has deplatformed so many of the most vocal conservatives that I'm hearing less from them than I used to in the past. And so, you know, tonight I'm getting to hear some voices and some, you know, feelings, concerns that I'm not easily exposed to now. And I'm by no means am I ignoring that there's more than 70 million people out there who feel disenfranchised right now. I'm not ignoring that at all.
That's just a reflection of America right now. Lots of individuals out there are angry. And before we sort of wrap it up here, that was another question I did have to ask you, John. Your thoughts and opinions on just this sort of, how else can I put this without sounding too rude? I don't want to offend anyone, but I'll just say it seems like everyone is really trying to push for some sort of a civil war. You're seeing these politicians really push for that. I don't know why, but your thoughts on that, John?
I think my concern ramping up to the election was that we would see factions from people's movements taking action in the streets. That's what my concern. Like escalations of existing political violence in the streets between Antifas and Proud Boys. That kind of vibe escalating to gunfire, and this hasn't happened. And what I see is that ultimately the people are looking for leadership and direction rather than assuming control and committing to action unto themselves. The temperament of the people seems to me they're looking for direction and they're waiting for cues from leadership. So that's my perspective on that question right now, is that it may be decided in Congress rather than in the streets as to whether or not any of that really happens. Because the sentiment of the people does not appear that they are ready to pour out on the streets and start killing each other over political mistakes. It doesn't appear like that right now. It appears more like people are not prepared to do that because in part because they know that there's a risk. And as I said before, we're at risk in North America of losing a lot because we made so much progress. We're going to turn into Syria if we go to that route, right? All that's going to be left of us is bombed out cities. So we have a lot to lose. So if the cooler heads prevail, that won't happen. But as to a people's movement, you know, like a unibomb, whatever, you know, like what I'm trying to get to is that the protest violent activism of the late 60s and 70s doesn't seem to be manifesting here as much as the possibility that some leadership figures will emerge, let's say, out of Congress and will, let's say, these urges to secede and such will take a grasp there, and that the people will follow the leadership, and that will be how the destiny of the country is decided, is that the people will follow leaders rather than assuming sort of a libertarian, every person for themselves type of stance and just starting to run their own show in their own neighborhood. I don't see it as much as that. It's the people waiting for leadership. In other words, leadership hasn't gone out of style. America identifies as strong leaders. They're looking for that. The people will respond to that. And if that strong leader says go to war, they'll go to war. And if strong leader says make peace at home, they'll find a way to make peace because they identify with that more than they do with the urge to individual autonomy. As we've seen, you know, as we sense and as we fear, you know, the levels of anger in people's households is just outrageous right now and intolerable. But it hasn't translated into mass violence in the streets.
And
so that's my thinking.
By the way, John, before we wrap it up here, we do have one more call. I have no idea who this is. Let's take this call. Caller, you are live on the air. Let it rip. Go ahead.
Let it rip? Oh, dear.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Never mind. I'll call back later. I'll call back.
Well, the show's going to end right now. Did you have a question for John?
Just about the vaccine.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're now going to be the vaccines that we're now going to get.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How safe does he think it is, especially for senior citizens?
Well,
like my
I think your
mom.
question is very important, and that you would need to consult someone with significantly more education and skills in this area than me. I can't define any kind of medical policy for the public around this right now. I can't give credible answers on those kinds of questions. I think you are called upon to make further evaluations and inquire to the best of your ability. And if, due to your deliberations and the information that you access that's available to the members of the public, you decide that this is safe and valuable for you, then you should be free to make your own medical choices in that regard too. I'm sorry that I can't offer you any guidance, but I do care about. I have seniors in my own family. I care about the success of the seniors through all this as well. I really do.
Okay, my apologies. I just came into the show and I didn't know what your topic is.
Well, we're glad that you called in anyways. It's good to hear your voice.
Right.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
You
Good
got
night.
it. Good night. But in terms of senior citizens, they were almost looked at as the sacrificial lamb.
Senior citizens' rights, they're already under pressure before you add the pandemic to the situation. There's lots of pressure on seniors to begin with. So they're a vulnerable population, and we have to rally around our seniors as well as our other vulnerable members of our society right now. What we believe or not, or what facts we may have, or imperfect knowledge or perfect knowledge we may have, we still have to rally around and unify our families and communities in whatever ways we can. Up here, the government says wearing the mask is protecting the vulnerable, right? They're appealing to this notion of protecting the vulnerable, and protecting the vulnerable is ethical. Whether that means wearing a mask or doing something else, the point is that we're a society that cares, and if we, that's part of our hope for the future, that we're a society worth preserving if we care.
Absolutely.
That's all I can add.
And John, in closing, I do want to thank you tremendously for being a part of the program. It's always an honor to have you here. I always enjoy our conversations. They're always fun and lively. I'm glad we took some calls, and some people were angry, which we did our job. People were pissed off at what we were talking about. That's always the goal here, to cause that sort of emotion in the listener. So we succeeded.
It was a very high energy show, and a lot of fireworks, and I was entertained and informed by being here tonight.
Love that. I'm glad you're a good sport, John, and we will do this again on the other side, my friend. Please go ahead and say whatever you'd like. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael. My best wishes to you and yours for the holidays and into the winter season. Toughest time ever for sure for everybody. Everybody doing your best, making your best decisions. Stay informed. Stay connected with your friends, and hold out hope. Your ancestors made it this far. That's why you're here. We're made of the same stuff. We're made of the same success stuff, and we're going to get through it. Not without more struggle. There's plenty of struggle coming ahead. But I want to offer hope to people. I'm here. I'm committed to seeing my part through this. I hope each of you is committed to making it happen for you and your family as well. My website is yourinnervoice.com. For all commercial reasons, I'll tell you that I work as a clinician. I'm available for remote sessions. I have a very high performance practice that's recognized by top mental health professionals in North America. And so if you are engaged in counseling or coaching and you're looking for a super turbocharged session with somebody with an international reputation for excellence, I invite you to visit my website, yourinnervoice.com. Find out about private sessions by telephone or Skype, 1-888-453-0751, my toll-free number. Call in. Be happy to hear from you. I'll be on winter holidays like everybody else, but I'll be around. And winter's the time for you to do some inner work. And if you're interested in therapies and coaching, then my practice is definitely a great stop on your tour to wellness.
Love that. And by the way, John, I'm going to have to bring you back on again very, very soon. We didn't get a chance to talk about any of the stories you had highlighted for us. I feel terrible.
You mean you're going to bring me back before the end of the year? Is that what you said?
Of course.
Well, I'd like to do that again, sure.
We'll do it again, and we'll talk about some of the things that you wanted to address here. And I feel terrible. I mean, John, I take notes, but all of that goes out the window when I do the show, I noticed.
It's kind of live and spontaneous, and something was created tonight that we didn't imagine beforehand. We could only realize it by doing it, right?
Correct. This is going to be a fun one to listen back to. Once again, thank you so much, John. I'll ring you back up very soon, my friend.
Great to hear from you, Mike. All the best. Talk to you.
Clockwise. Good night.
Good night.
And there he goes, boys and girls. That was Mr. John Kelly, who did a killer job here tonight interacting with all of you. I hope you enjoyed that. I appreciate your call, enlightened and preparing. I Appreciate your call too, Star Mountain. I know you called in. I really appreciate that. And of course, as we wrap up here tonight, I do want to thank all of you out there for listening to this live stream here. It's been a pretty goddamn good time, in my opinion. And if tonight's episode resonated with any of you out there and you want more content, please go to patreon.com/Michael Decon. And that's where you'll find bonus content. Oh, yes. Lots of bonus content right there for you. Patreon.com/Michael Decon. And of course, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not done so already. And of course, take us on the road with you. Search the Michael Decon Program on all podcast platforms. Special shout out to all of you yet again, those of you who do listen to us on the road, and those who listen to us at 2 a.m. when you are working that terrible job. We love you. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show as much as I did. And with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.